how the boats are coming across from Turkey to France and the trade that's going on. We've been watching the boats be loaded up. Can you tell me where you're going to? Are you off to France?
Yes.
Those boats.
Police?
No, those BBC, Radio 4 journalists.
No, danke.
Well, you can refuse my questions, but you're carrying boats that are going to be used on the beaches of France to take people on very dangerous crossings. What do you say to people?
Nichts verstanden.
Well,
Kein Deutsch.
who's paying you? Where have you come from?
Ich Bulgaria.
Bulgaria?
Yeah.
Where will you take these boats next? Okay, well, it's clear you don't want to talk to me, but we've seen what's happening. We've sat here and we've watched you load boats into this van. Where are they going to? Okay, go. Okay.
Too many men. There's men coming towards you.
Okay.
Get down here quick. Get down here quick. Where was he from? Bulgaria?
He was from Bulgaria, yeah. He's just pulling out now. He's going, there he is, he's off.
But I think we need to get out of here because there's people now looking down at this car where we are. I'm satisfied that what led us here was right. I wonder how many hubs like this around Germany there are. It must be a 24/7 operation.
We've passed our findings on to the NCA and we'll be reporting back as and when things develop. Paul Morris again.
We will be tasking direct action. This threat's obviously too big for one agency, so we are working with everybody to be able to work across those borders to counteract and pursue those individuals who are intent on making money out of the misery of others.
With something like that, if we can find that kind of information, I mean, it wasn't easy to do, but if we can go there and see that kind of operation play out in front of us, it makes you wonder, are the authorities really doing enough?
Yeah, again, the challenge for Germany in particular, their legislation in relation to what they can actually do to the vessels as a commodity, they are very limited. And so that's why we're working really hard with our intelligence sharing so we can actually target the criminality behind those supplies. Obviously, the demand and human greed will always remain.
This is the BBC World Service with letters from mothers to daughters.
I'm talking to Isabel Allende, who is a best-selling author, about the letters she wrote to her daughter, Paula, after she became seriously ill with a rare condition called porphyria.
I tried to use my grandmother's magic. If she
The top stories live from the Sky News City studio. The Chancellor prepares to deliver his so-called budget for growth. Businesses will be telling me what they want to hear. Pressure on Jeremy Hunt to reinstate VAT-free shopping for tourists amid warnings Britain is losing out to Europe. More tax relief for pension savers is expected, but will it discourage early retirement? And shares of Prudential fall despite a jump in full-year profits. Good morning, this is Ian King live in our business and economic news from the heart of the city. Well, the budget is being trailed by the Treasury as a budget for growth, with measures promised for driving business investment and supporting businesses to navigate their way through the current inflationary squalls. The latter will be particularly important for the estimated 350,000 small businesses potentially exposed when the government's energy bill relief scheme closes at the end of this month. Well, joining me now is the National Chair of the Federation of Small Businesses, Martin McTague. Martin, welcome to you. It's been made clear that the Chancellor's going to extend the energy price guarantee for households, but what about small businesses?
No, I think that's a big worry. There are a lot of businesses that secured deals in the summer of last year, assuming that they would be protected by the Chancellor's guarantees, but that has failed to materialise, and the discount arrangements are next to useless. So we are lobbying very hard to try and make sure that is extended to small businesses, because for a lot of them, that could be an existential threat.
And that's 350,000 businesses, according to your research. It's a terrifying number.
Absolutely, yeah, and I know that he understands that issue, but we've also made it very clear to him that we're not looking for anything like the sort of mini budget excitements. We are looking for a steady building of the confidence that there is at the moment. He knows that small businesses always lead the recovery, and we've asked him to also focus on things like R&D investments and business rates, which is clearly a big issue for lots of businesses, as well as energy.
Absolutely. I mean, you want business rates to be scrapped for firms with properties with a rateable value of less than £25,000. What sort of hope do you hold out of that?
Well, I think that's a reasonable request, because we've seen that the Labour Party has looked at this proposal and have adopted it. So I think it's now up to the Chancellor to try and take the same position. We would go further and say that in the example of childcare, that childcare centres should be excluded completely. That's been done in other parts of the nation. So I don't see why he can't take that step as well.
Now, you mentioned business investment there. Obviously, the super deduction goes at the end of the month. We're promised some sort of capital allowances. It's obviously not going to be as generous as the super deduction, is it?
No, but I mean, our focus is very much on the R&D tax credits, where we know that for many of these businesses, they're in the early stages of developing quite innovative products. And if that is scrapped in the way in which the Chancellor's or the Treasury has proposed, that could have a devastating effect on lots of small innovative businesses. I think he's listening. I just hope he goes the whole way and reverses those changes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we better explain what it is they're trying to do for the benefit of viewers. I mean, essentially, there are separate R&D reliefs for small companies and large ones, and the Treasury wants to roll them into a single relief. Why does that hurt small businesses, in your view?
Well, because the way in which the scheme would work, the RDEX scheme, the large business scheme, would seriously disadvantage small businesses. And the idea is that they're going to put a sort of lower limit on the claims. For many small businesses, claiming R&D tax credits is already very complicated, and they usually have to get a third party to help them. Going this route is going to make it even more difficult. And for many investors, it will mean that they can't get the support they need for the businesses that are developing these ideas.
What about the changes that were promised in pensions tax relief? I mean, this potentially could benefit owner-managers looking to sell their business, because it will enable them to save more into their pension.
Yeah, it does help, and it has a sort of bizarre side effect in that if you're able to put more into your pension, you may accelerate your plans for retirement, which I understood the Chancellor was trying to reverse. So, I mean, I think they have to be very careful that there aren't some unintended consequences there. But, broadly speaking, we would welcome those proposals.
All right, Martin McTay, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the fiscal arithmetic will be central to today's event. Government borrowing for the year looks set to come in some £30 billion lower than the Office for Budget Responsibility predicted only as recently as last autumn, while Conservative backbenchers are urging the Chancellor to cut taxes. But the growth forecasts unveiled by the OBR today could wipe out that extra wiggle room, which is why the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies recently suggested Jeremy Hunt should bank any savings rather than splurge them. Well, joining me now is Azad Zengana. He's a senior European economist and strategist at Schroders. Azad, good to see you this morning. We know already that the Chancellor's going to extend the energy price guarantee and his freeze on fuel duty. I mean, these are big giveaways, aren't they?
Well, they certainly were back in November. Today, less so because the cost of natural gas has come down across Europe. So, in a sense, the help that he's providing is less costly than it was thought of before. And that's really one of the reasons why we've got these savings coming in that potentially he could use, or maybe he should bank for a rainy day.
Indeed, but as people have been saying, what the OBR can give with one hand, it can take away with the other. The fact that borrowing is coming in lower, would the Chancellor be well advised to bank some of those savings?
We think so. I mean, just because borrowing is coming in lower doesn't mean it's not very high. It's still one of the highest in the advanced world. And when you think about the amount of borrowing going on and the fact that the Bank of England is also trying to sell some of its gilts back to the market, the amount of debt that's hitting the market is going to be eye-watering in the next couple of years, which is pushing up interest rates for everybody. So, if the Chancellor can bank some of that and reduce the borrowing in the next couple of years, I think it would be helpful.
What sort of giveaways can we expect, given what you've just said there, and on top of the ones that we've already discussed?
Well, they've already highlighted that defence spending is one of the big priorities. This is something that's been expanding for a while now. And although they're only hitting the minimum 2.5% of GDP, that is set to receive a bit more of a boost. Help for childcare as well is going to be welcomed because the government has recognised that a large number of people are missing from the workforce. And one idea is that trying to help children get the childcare that they need can push parents back into the workforce. So hopefully that can certainly be helpful for the economy overall.
I mean, it's difficult to model that, but you think that would be beneficial to GDP growth, all things being equal?
I think it can only help. It may only be marginal. I don't think it's going to be as big as a sort of game changer for the overall economy. I mean, ultimately, some of the big questions that are being asked right now is around the long-term trajectories for the economy. The Bank of England heavily downgraded the medium-term forecasts back in February, and we think the OBR is going to do the same thing. And if that's the case, then there's going to be bigger questions to be answered about long-term fiscal sustainability, where taxes need to be further out. And of course, this government has got an election coming up, and so they won't want to be in a position just before that, probably next year, where they're having to raise taxes yet again.
Quite so. What about public sector pay? I mean, we speak on a day that the teachers are out on strike again. Would you expect to see some kind of improvement in public sector pay as a result of decisions made today?
I think there should be. At the moment, even though public sector pay is picking up, obviously in response to higher inflation, it's still well below the inflation rates that we've seen over the last year. So we expect those workers to be pushing for bigger increases probably into next year as well. And as inflation comes down, the pressures will ease off. But I'm not sure it'll be down to the Chancellor to announce sort of blanket pay increases as such. These things are typically negotiated at a lower level.
Now, Jeremy Hunt wants public debt as a proportion of GDP to be falling by 2027-2028. How do you assess his chances of achieving that? I mean, he's really got little room for manoeuvre, has he?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty low. The pretty much all chancellors have this medium-term rule, these golden rules to try to get debt back under control and falling. And we haven't seen a chancellor really hit that for quite some time. So given, like I said, there's an election coming up, I think it's pretty unlikely that that's going to be met anytime soon.
All right, Azab, we have to leave it there. Haven't had you on the programme for a while. It's good to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Some other stories for you now. And shares of IG Group, the online trading platform and spread betting firm, have fallen by 7% this morning, following news of a 5% drop in its active client base during the 3 months to the end of February. Well, IG said stock trading by clients had returned to pre-pandemic levels, but added that the number of clients remained steady and materially higher than before the pandemic. IG's overall revenues during the period came in at £758.4 million, which was up 5% on the same period a year ago, reflecting a big increase in activity in exchange traded derivatives such as futures and options contracts. Balfour Beatty, the international infrastructure group, said this morning that inflation and supply chain disruption had made it difficult to deliver some capital programmes on which it is working. The company cited the UK government's road investment strategy and HS2 as taking longer than expected. Well, the news came as the company, which is also a contractor on the UK's first new nuclear power plant in a generation at Hinkley Point in Somerset, reported full-year pre-tax profits for 2022 of £291 million on an underlying basis. That was up from 187 million in 2021. Well, Balfour Beatty also cited recent contract wins, including working on the £1.2 billion Lower Thames Crossing project, a 7-year £297 million contract for highways maintenance in East Sussex, and the $222 million Jacksonville International Airport Terminal project in Florida. And the world's biggest fashion retailer has reported a record profit after demand from consumers remains strong even after the end of COVID lockdowns and the effect of those being annualised. Well, Inditex, which owns Zara, Pull&Bear and the upmarket label Massimo Dutti, reported a net profit of €4.1 billion for 2022. That was up 27% on 2021. And that was despite the cost of closing its operations in Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Well, the Spanish company said its sales grew in all parts of the world, both in its physical stores and online, and across all of its brands. Now, traditionally, budgets tended not to move equity markets very much, as a lot of the moves were signalled in advance and priced in. Similarly, since the financial crisis, the gilt and foreign exchange markets have tended not to move much because the Chancellor of the day had less room for manoeuvre than in the past, or had boxed themselves in by promising not to raise taxes. So the fiscal arithmetic was pretty straightforward. Well, Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget last year changed all that, and so there is a fair bet market participants will be listening closely this afternoon. Joining me now is Chris Beecham. He's the Chief Market Analyst at IG Group. Chris, welcome to you. I mean, people will be hoping not to see the fireworks that we got in September. What are you going to be keeping your eye on specifically?
Yeah, good morning, Ian. Yes, I think it's very much a case that the Chancellor will hope would just be more like a budget of the old days, where the market doesn't react too much. Last year was definitely the unfortunate difference, I think, for that one. I think we're looking to see the government obviously providing a much more rosy outlook, I think, than just was the case about 6 months ago. If we cast our minds back to autumn of last year and how gloomy it looked for the UK economy, things actually have gone a lot better, I think, than most people would have dared to hope. At that point, energy costs have come down, the pound has stabilised, even the risk of recession has receded. And that, as you say, gives Jeremy Hunt a lot more room to play with in terms of what he can do with government finances. I think so. The message is still, of course, as government's way behind in the polling, is still a government that wants to say, look, we're handling the economy well. This is very much as steady as she goes, and we're doing what we can to help boost the economy. But obviously, we don't want to rock the boat too much because times are still tough and the outlook is still very uncertain.
Chris, what sort of turnover do you tend to see on budget days? Is it a good day for trading?
It can be a good day if you get a decent reaction. Occasionally, if you have some tinkering with tax plans, maybe because the outlook for GDP, perhaps you see a bit of activity in sterling. But it's been a few years since budget day has been a really notable day. Usually, I think the markets just take it as something that so much of it's pre-announced that you don't tend to get too much of reaction.
Well, and of course, it's clashing with day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival, where I imagine a lot of your customers will be showing up this afternoon.
I think there'll be perhaps less activity, yes. And of course, they'll be keeping one eye on the budget. But I think everyone's just hoping this is going to be the kind of event this afternoon where it just doesn't really rock the boat too much at all.
I mean, invariably, the Chancellor pulls a rabbit out of his hat on budget day, or tries to. Now, we've had a few pre-announcements, obviously pensions, tax relief, for example, an extension of free childcare. What are the other potential rabbits that he might pull?
That one, I think you might see some tinkering with tax levels at the lower end of the spectrum, if you like. You know how the government is suffering in its polling with the data suggesting that all those red wall seats they won are now very much under pressure. So they'll be looking for some kind of electoral advantage on that front that they can do that will perhaps give them an outsized boost without really changing the overall picture. So perhaps some changes around the basic rate might be something even that he decides to throw in at the last minute just to keep markets guessing, because he does have a bit more room for manoeuvre than he did have just a few months ago.
That would be pretty spectacular, given that we're told most Conservative MPs have been told not to expect big giveaways this year.
I think, yeah, there will be the surprise, of course, but this is a government that needs to find something to move its poll ratings, and at some point they need to find something that really would actually give them that chance to recover something of Labour's lead.
And in terms of market participants more broadly, I mean, in terms of the institutions, what kind of things would move the dial for them, do you think, on a day like today? Or is it really, as you say, a day for steady as she goes, let's not have any spectaculars?
I think after the last event, the mini budget of last year, I think this is one where they just like to see the UK government really just still in control of the situation. Anything that just sort of smacks of too much excitement would probably not go down particularly well, I suggest, in global markets. They want to see someone who's clearing out and laying out a clear plan for the next few months, and hopefully putting us in a better position for the budget next year.
All right, Chris, you've got to leave it there. It's great to catch up with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mentioned the name Prudential, and some people will automatically think of the famous man from the Pru. But that part of the business is now part of M&G, one of two businesses spun off by Prudential in recent years. While headquartered in the UK, the Pru is now focused on Asia and Africa, where it provides life and health insurance and asset management services to 19 million customers. Well, today, it reported an adjusted operating profit for 2022 of $3.38 billion, which was up 8% on 2021. I've been speaking with James Turner, the Chief Financial Officer, and I began by asking him what he'd seen since China dropped its lockdown restrictions.
We're really encouraged by the opportunity set now that the border between Hong Kong and China has reopened. We've seen visitor numbers in January. I mean, it's only been a few weeks, but visitor numbers in January about 9,000 a day on average, crept up to about 40,000 in February. In March year to date, it's about 60,000. It's still about 45–50% of the level pre-COVID. And one of the things that we're delighted to announce is that in February, by the end of February, our sales are already up 15% as a group.
Now, prior to the pandemic, you did use an awful lot of doorstep agents in terms of distribution in mainland China. I understand a lot of those fell away during the pandemic. Has that changed the way that you're distributing products?
So during COVID, you're absolutely right. One of the advantages that we had in the mainland is that we have a very dynamic model, and therefore we have both agency and banker. And so during that pandemic, when agency and face-to-face was restricted through COVID restrictions, we were able to utilize a very broad banker network. So we're in 23 provinces, we're in 99 cities, we're in, I think we've got 6,000 odd bank branches. And so there was a shift from agency to banker during that period. But what we've seen is that agency has really been coming back fast as the restrictions have started to ease.
How would you describe the competitor landscape right now? It looks like a lot of you've been in Asia for a century, but it looks as though some of your European competitors are playing catch up with you a bit now.
Look, I think it's a very difficult market if you're outside of it to break into. We have a number of structural drivers. As you say, we're 175 years old this year, 100 years in Asia. We have the largest agency force in Hong Kong, for example, to capture that mainland Chinese business that's coming across the border. And so you're absolutely right, this is a very attractive market, but we have got a very big competitive advantage going into it.
You've been trying to acquire a license in Macau. What's the latest on that?
So we're delighted to announce that we've got that license in Macau, and we're starting all the processes to actually start selling product in Macau now.
Now, you've a joint venture with CITIC, the state-owned financial services conglomerate. I mean, your senior management have said for a while you'd like to raise your stake in that. What can you tell me on that?
It's a great business. I mean, of course, we'd like to have a higher economic interest, but this is a great business. And actually, we benefit from having a great partner. And I think we've really benefited from that during the last few years. And, this is still a business that's got massive structural long-term drivers. And actually, when I look at NBP this year, for example, in the mainland, that new business profit grew by 15% year on year.
Looking at the macro, obviously the latest Chinese inflation data has been a bit softer than expected. What kind of assumptions are you making about Chinese GDP growth this year?
So look, I'm not in the business of making predictions on GDP or inflation, but taking the 5% that has been predicted seems perfectly reasonable. We're seeing a huge uptick in economic activity. That's good for consumers. That means it's really good for our business.
Now, obviously, you've got a big franchise in Taiwan as well as in China and Hong Kong. How would you characterise the mood there right now?
So Taiwan's had a great year. It's predominantly a banker business, and we've seen, our focus is on consumers, and the Taiwanese business is focusing on servicing its consumers, largely through a banker presence, and it's been growing positively.
And a word on Africa. I mean, we often forget that you've a sizable presence in Africa as well. How's that been trading recently?
So we're delighted. I mean, Africa still, we started it relatively recently, but it's growing. We're in 8 markets. All markets grew. All markets delivered higher operating profit this year than last year. We're really pleased with the momentum that they're building.
And we'll be getting reaction from the investment community to Prudential's results a little later in the programme. Still to come here on Ian King Live. It's been a choppy few days for the markets. We'll have a look at how they've begun this Wednesday morning after this short break. Stay tuned.
The press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
There's a feeling amongst some commentators that it's not the most respectful timing.
I think there's a word for it, fake news.
I mean, it's wow from Harriet. Delving deeper into the stories with different perspectives on tomorrow's headlines.
We really haven't seen the government getting round the table and negotiating. There are no easy answers to those questions.
The press preview delivering you tomorrow's news tonight on Sky News.
Empowerment is always key to development. Doing good outreach under the auspices of His Royal Highness Osi Ejatakbo VII presents Avatime Youth Empowerment Outreach 2023 with the theme Run to Jesus, Your Only Savior, Acts 10 verse 38. Date is Saturday the 26th of March to Saturday, April 1st, 2023. Below are the dates and venues. 27th March, Avatime Vane Community Center. 28th March, Avatime Amejokwe Market Square. 29th is Avatime Jokwepeme Primary School Compound. 30th March, Avatime Biakpa Community Center. 31st March, Avatime Bajame Community Center. Then April 1st is Avatime Fume and Jokwe Community Center. The time is 6:30 p.m. every day. Speakers: Reverend Michael K.M. Isiama.
We have redemption. We have been redeemed from the iniquities of the life. So you don't need to beg anymore. Oh, in Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God.
Reverend Samuel Avagame and Reverend Prince Mawuli Ejay, kindly consider with a generous heart donating to this noble cause financially, materially, or with your time and presence. Note, there will be free health screening during the day for all. Contact us on WhatsApp 0044 7851 205 626 or on mobile 054 959 1452 054 959 1452 or email us at admin@powerwordint.co.uk.
'Cause 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 Bye.
Barrel of Brent crude will currently cost you $77.59 a barrel. That's up just under a fifth of 1%. Well, joining me now is Rachel Winter. She's partner at Killick & Co. Rachel, good to see you this morning. We interviewed Prudential just before the break. What did you make of their results this morning?
I thought they were quite good results, actually. Profits were up. We had a nice increase in the dividend. I think it's important to remember that these results are backward-looking. They're looking at last year, when really the profits were impacted by the closure of the border between China and Hong Kong. So Prudential sells a lot of insurance to Chinese residents who cross the border into Hong Kong and buy their insurance there. And clearly with the border closed, that business wasn't really happening. So the new business from Prudential last year was a bit weaker than expected. I think that's why the shares are down so much this morning. But the company has said that business has really picked up over the course of the last couple of months since that border has reopened.
Yes, I don't know whether you caught our interview with the CFO, but he struck me as being incredibly optimistic.
He did. I think he used the phrase, "I'm delighted," quite a few times. So he did seem very positive. I do wonder if the share price weakness this morning is some profit taking, because if we go back to October last year, the shares were around about £8, and today they're just under £11. So people who bought in around about £8 would be sitting on quite a nice profit at the moment.
Absolutely. Now, another one updating the markets today, Balfour Beatty. What did you make of them?
Again, really good results. So profits up around about 42%, nice increase in the dividend, and they've also extended their share buyback program for a third consecutive year. So I think investors this morning will be very happy. I think we are heading into a very strong era for infrastructure, and that really should benefit Balfour Beatty. I think governments in the UK and around the world are really looking to spend more on renewable power and green infrastructure, and I think Balfour Beatty is well placed to deliver on that.
Yeah, one thing that struck me looking at the numbers, Rachel, is that they seem to not be chasing business at any cost these days. They're far more focused on their operating margins than a lot of players in that sector traditionally have been.
They are indeed. So they've made quite a big deal about how they've de-risked their business. I think in the past they chased a lot of what they call fixed price contracts, where they would have to absorb higher costs resulting from labour price increases or material cost increases. And in the past that has led to some losses for them. So I think they're very sensible to move away from that type of business.
Now, another company updating the market today that I know has caught your eye is Trainline.
Yes, I think good results this morning. So they've done very well, particularly in Europe, where people do seem to be travelling a bit more. But they have said that here in the UK, they have noticed a real impact from the train strikes. Obviously, we've got some more of those this week. And also they've said that business travel here in the UK has not recovered quite as much as they would have expected it to.
All right, Rachel, got to leave it there. Have a peaceful budget afternoon. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. You too.
I wish it would be peaceful. I don't think it will be. Anyway, we're told that encouraging more investment will be a centre point of the Chancellor's speech this afternoon. There'll be more on that after this short break. Don't go away.
Empowerment is always key to development. Doing good outreach under the auspices of His Royal Highness Osi Ejatakbo VII presents Avatime Youth Empowerment Outreach 2023 with the theme Run to Jesus, Your Only Savior, Acts 10 verse 38. Date is Saturday the 26th of March to Saturday, April 1st, 2023. Below are the dates and venues. 27th March, Avatime Vanle Community Center. 28th March, Avatime Amejokwe Market Square. 29th is Avatime Jokwepeme Primary School Compound. 30th March, Avatime Biakpa Community Center. 31st March, Avatime Bajame Community Center. Then April 1st is Avatime Fume and Jokwe Community Center. The time is 6:30 p.m. every day. Speakers: Reverend Michael K.M. Asiama.
We have redemption. We have been redeemed from the iniquities of the past. So you don't need to beg anymore. Oh, indeed, the Son of the living God.
Reverend Samuel Avagame, and Reverend Prince Mawuli Ejay, kindly consider with a generous heart donating to this noble cause financially, materially, or with your time and presence. Note, there will be free health screening during the day for all. Contact us on WhatsApp 0044 7851 205 626 or on mobile 054 959 1452 054 959 1452 or email us at admin@powerwordint.co.uk.
Send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Starr, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Hi there. Are you dreaming of owning your own house in Ghana? Then you will need a well-documented piece of land that is free from troubles. I highly recommend My Africa Property for any size of land that you will need. With My Africa Property, lands are available in Prampram, Sopoli, Tohenia, Ogome, Dodova, Winneba, and many other locations at affordable prices. These locations are about an hour away from the airport, only 35 minutes from the motorway, 10 minutes drive from Central University College, 10 minutes drive to the beach, and close to Prampram Senior High School and Ghana Men's Soccer Center of Excellence. For more details, visit our website www.myafricaproperty.com or call our UK office on 0208 123 2523. For our US and Canada offices, call us on +1 585 184 994145. You can also email us at ghana@myafricaproperty.com.
Tune in to On Point here on Starr Radio UK with Empress Regina
every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
Check me out. He tells me my energy is making him tired.
Yes!
How do you get the energy to do
I've been told that I have a lot of energy, but my goodness, I think today I have met my match, people. I have met my match, Miss Suzanne. Wow, amazing.
One of the things that's the start of the darkness. Hole of darkness.
So what did that?
Myself and the world will adjust. And 2019.
Forget the proverbial boardroom. Join me, Simone Frazier, on the CEO, the program that gives you the driving seat over your life. Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. only on Starr Radio.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR, S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Hi there, this is CJ Buckman, your life coach. And whenever I'm in London, I listen to Starr Radio UK right here. But guess what? You can listen to wherever you are.
The best radio show.
All around the world. In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK. Are you ready to turn it up?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I know your heart is aching.
Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Hey, this is Archie, and you are listening to Starr Radio UK and the Morning Show.
This is Starr Radio UK. Starr Radio UK. This is Starr Radio UK.
Welcome.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio. Starr Radio. Radio for the people, by the people.
Love for you runs deep. All of you makes my heart beat. You make a doubt they fade. Jesus, and that's what makes you great. You hold the world in your hands, the hand that made me who I am. Same God now, yesterday, and forevermore. And that's what makes you great.
Okay, let me say massive good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth, and those of you on other planets as well. We want to salute each and every one of you, and once again we say welcome to the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Today is the 15th day of March, the year 2023, with the time now 10:44 from the hearts of London. When it comes to the UK, I will call it a budget day. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is going to be reading his budget in the Houses of Parliament, where we'll be taking you to at 12 o'clock exactly. But that aside, we want to welcome each and every one of you who has found the time this morning to be with us. Tell your neighbor and your friends and loved ones of Starr Radio UK. Invite them to like our pages as well. But let's say good morning to my team this morning, Mr. Olayomi, Koiki, and my able producer, Mr. Francis Guy, in the house. Jodi, wherever you are, good morning to you. Felix, all the way in Aberdeen, massive good morning. Mr. Frank Davis in Ghana, good morning. Anthony Adedeji, massive good morning to you.
You make a doubt they fade.
Mr. Badeshina, good morning. Shamsuddin, good morning. Amaya, good morning. Miss Gold, good morning to you. And let me put it this way, all protocol observed.
The world in your hands.
Starr Radio UK.
The hand that made me who I am.
All of you on the sister platforms that I cannot acknowledge you at the moment, don't you worry, when Yomi comes on, he will be acknowledging you on that platform as well. But I want to welcome each and every one of you to this wonderful edition of the morning show. So for those of you who have just tuned in for the first time of listening to us on the Wednesday edition of the morning show, this is how the program will go. I'm going to bring you the quote for the day, the weather forecast will follow suit, then the travel update as well. We'll look at some of the stories making the rounds across the globe, known as global trotting. Then after that, exactly at 11 o'clock, we'll be having Mr. Olayomi Koiki joining in to bring you updates from Nigeria. Now we'll continue from that part until 12:30 when we open the lines for you to add your voice to the discussions, and then we'll go to other parts of the world to look at some of the stories making the rounds. But as I did say earlier on, in the UK, or yes, in England, the budget is going to be read this afternoon. So everybody's gearing themselves up for what is going to happen. But one thing for sure that I want you to understand, Friday, God willing, we should have our money man, Mr. Dan Taberi, throwing more light on it. So make notes of issues that you don't understand there. Okie dokie do. Then at 12 o'clock, we take you straight to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. So in a gist, that's what's going to happen.
All of you,
yes, so this morning, the quote for the day says, if you always decide to sit and wait for your time, you will wait for eternity. Yeah.
And that's what makes you.
That's why there's an adage that says, make hay while the sun shines.
You will never change.
Okay, let's move on straight to the weather front. What has the weather got in stock for us? It's been a mixed gray since last the weekend. So let's see what is going to happen today. Well, for those of you in London and the southeast of England, this is how the weather is going to be for you. This afternoon we'll see dry conditions and plenty of sunshine to start. Later on in the afternoon, thicker cloud will start gradually building in from the west. This evening will start with cloudy skies and spells of heavy and persistent rain, turning drier in the second half of the night for most, with rain becoming patchier. When it comes to the temperature, the temperatures will be ranging between, my apologies there,
Holy, holy, God Almighty.
Okay, the lowest is going to be 7 degrees. Sunset is going to be 18:05, and sunrise for tomorrow morning 06:16 hours. UV level low, pollution low as well. And that brings us to the end of the weather forecast for you today. It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Let's take this quick commercial break, and I'll take you straight to the roads for you to know what is happening on your travels this morning. Stay tuned.
Tune in to On Point here on Starr Radio UK with Empress Regina every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Okay, so keep your eyes on the roads. Keep your eyes on the roads. I'm keeping navigated. I promise our bond. Now, this morning, those of you in London, well, there is some problem when it comes to the underground. There are some strike actions taking place. So virtually all but Elizabeth line is working. Okay, it's only the Elizabeth line that is working. All the others have been suspended. But when it comes to London Overground, DLR, London Tram, in good service there. Now let's move on straight to the major roads in London. Let me tell you what is happening there, because we know the moment there are strikes like that, people will try to now use the roads. Now A24, A4, Central London Red routes have got closures. Now A13, A40, not circular, A406 has got serious delays. If you can avoid that, do your best to do so. If not, continue to listen to us, because as and when there are any changes, we promise to bring it to the fore. Now moving on to the River Bus. The River Bus this morning are surely good service there. London Cable Car, good service there as well. But keep your eyes on the roads. Keep your eyes on the roads as we keep you navigated to the final segment of the travel updates. That's the National Rail. On the National Rail this morning, Great Western Railway has got minor delays. Southeastern, minor delays. Southern, minor delays. And Transport for Wales, minor delays there. Well. That is where we bring the update to a close. But I will say it once again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you, wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today. But you know what? Continue to keep those eyes on the roads.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business. The show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business, but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Welcome back to the program. It is Star Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now it's now gone, 9 minutes to the top of the hour. It's now time for Global Trotting. So wherever you are, tell me what is happening in your area. Some of the news that is making the rounds there, but I can tell you shortly, exactly like 11 o'clock, Mr. Olayomi Koiki will bring you details of what is happening in Nigeria. But let me say good morning to Moses Olariran. Yes, I say Archie, my other half brother from Ghana. Pele. Yes, Moses. Yes. That is Sir Moses. Sir Moses. Thank you very, very much for joining us as well. He says that well done to both of you, and Olayomi Koiki is our main man. Yoruba Nation is our goal and no going back. Well, as I say all the time, you believe in a cause, you stand for it. It might cost you, but you know that posterity will be the judge of that. You know that you stood for a good cause. Why? What about that? So wherever you are, continue to listen to us. Now, when it comes to some of the stories that we're going to be looking at this morning from Nigeria, now Naira crisis, banks rushing old notes. NLC insists on 7-day ultimatum, so that's going to go on. And 900 Boko Haram collaborators, family members, nabbed. What is going to happen to them? Are they just going to say reintegration and the next moment, they go on to do whatever they are doing? Nigeria, 36 African countries face health worker shortage amid foreign recruitment. That's what World Health Organization is saying. Of course, we don't want to, put our money where our mouth are, and therefore, or our mouth is, because we don't take good care of our people. And so what do we expect from them? What do we expect? Well. It's all coming away from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Greener pastures, why wouldn't they live? Now, some personnel of the Nigerian police force have expressed concerns over the delay in the payment of their February salaries. Why? Is government broke? Okay, Ambrose Ali University sacked 22 lecturers to suppress salary agitation. That's what ASU is saying. And the Foreign Affairs Select Committee inquiry publishes submissions on behalf of British citizen Nnamdi Kanu. We'll be bringing you more on that front once we have Mr. Olayomi Koiki on. And I promise you for sure, before any changes this evening, exactly at 18 hours GMT, British time, yes, okay, we'll be having the Niger Voices, where we have more hours to chat and say everything that is going on in Nigeria. Okay, now moving on straight to some of the other stories making the rounds in other parts of the world as well. Well, in the UK, as I did say earlier on, Jeremy Hunt will be reading the budget this afternoon, and therefore you don't want to miss out on that, do you? Make sure your dials are logged on there, and you will definitely hear it all. And some other stories making the rounds there as well. Free childcare to be expanded to 1 and 2 year olds. Now, interestingly, we got a nursery right at our doorsteps, and therefore we have chat with them. They said, you know what? We need to employ more teachers. We need to expand. But how do we do all those things? But where's the government is saying that? Are they going to give them some money for expansion or what? Or okay, and if you're a parent as well, and maybe they said that, well, with that 30 hours a week, free childcare for children between 1 and 2 or 0 and 2, whichever is appropriate. Now, do you think that will motivate you to get out there? Well, not sure about that. Woman awarded 19K after Christmas party harassment. Now, who harassed there? Now, Shirley Lyons says she felt unsafe after a colleague at Starr Plan sexually harassed her in 2017. My goodness. Okay, now let's move on. The RAF and German jets have intercepted a Russian aircraft near Estonian airspace. Is a story that is making the rounds here as well. RAF and German jet fighters have intercepted a Russian aircraft near Estonian airspace in the first joint operation of its kind. The two Typhoons were scrambled on Tuesday to intercept an IL-78 Midas refueling plane flying between St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. Well, So I'll be telling you more about that. This war in Ukraine, the Russian war in Ukraine. We don't know how it's all panning out. But, well, Tosino, massive good morning to you. Now, Russia pilots reckless in drone collision. That's what the U.S. is saying. A U.S. surveillance drone plunged into the Black Sea following an encounter with Russian jets. Was it deliberate? What happened? Okay. Pakistan breaking law in arrest attempt. Imran Khan is saying the ex-prime minister says he is mentally prepared for sleeping in a cell after police clash with his supporters. What did they want him for? Can't they just get on with their lives? Okay, Romanian court rejects Andrew Tate's bail application. Wow. Now, Argentina inflation soars past 100% mark. Some of the stories. And Chinese doctor who exposed SARS crisis dies. Yang Yong became a national hero after revealing Beijing was covering up the scales of the virus. Well, a lot more going to be coming your way from there. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. 3 minutes to the top of the hour. Now let's move on straight to some of the other stories making the rounds on the African continent as well. Now, students die after a truck rams into Uganda classroom. Oh my goodness, the picture here is nothing good to write home about. A massive tipper truck runs. I bet you it might be something to do with it brakes. Like couldn't brake. I mean, it's crashed, broken the walls of the school and entered the classroom halfway. Okay, that's pictures that I have here, which is no good. Over 200 killed, 1,000 displaced in Malawi, Mozambique cyclone destruction, and then top Ethiopian officials host U.S. Secretary of State. Are they trying to broker a proper peace deal, permanent one, from what is happening in their part of the world? Foreigners, including 4 Nigerians, held in Indonesia on drug charges. Okay, those are some of the stories making the rounds there as well. But when it comes to Ghana, what's happening in Ghana? Now, doctors in Wa West use phone touch to perform surgeries 2 years after theater lamps broke down. Wow. Honestly. But you see that we waste money. And that's why the other time I was talking about the fact that 6 March, the Independence Day celebration that was going on, I was saying that, well, we could have used that money to do other things. Because we are not in a position where we say everything is fine with us and therefore we have to rejoice. So unless somebody is telling me, you're trying to quote from the Bible, as Paul said, rejoice again, I say rejoice. Is it Paul who said that or John? And then that is what people are looking at and getting on. And therefore, as a country, whether we are broke or doomed or damned, we still have to go on. But what do you think about all that? Well, a whole hospital, after their theater lights broke down, they've not been able to get a replacement, whatever it is. Why? Okay, Marietta Brew, Free Chikata wrote to reject national honors. President staffers alleges, because people were criticizing, saying that why was Marietta not giving an award? And what award was that? Okay. It is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now we're gonna be taking a break whilst we wait for Mr. Olayomi Koiki to join in. A Sherman, Sam George praises Dampare, please professionalism. What has gone on there? And visually impaired allegedly kills wife is another story making the rounds. What happened? What happened? The CEO of Beige Bank has explained to receive a transfer of customers' funds. Witness has said the vaccine shortages claims no one died. False. That's what the minority is saying. Well, it said that the claim that no one died due to the vaccine shortage wasn't true. But what do you think? Lots more going to be coming your way from here. It is Starr Radio UK. Now let's go enjoy this music, and once we come back, we'll continue with the show. It says it's from Akase Brimpong, and it says God is working. Enjoy.
Yeah, man. God is working. He's up to something. I may not see it, but still I'm trusting. God is working.
show. The best radio show. The best radio show.
God is working, working, working. God is working, 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 working.
All right, so God is working. It's up to something. You know, interestingly, at times we don't see nothing that is happening, and we reckon that, we think all hope is lost. But somewhere, somehow, God is working on your behalf. Maybe you don't see it, but we can see it, can't we? Well. Myself and Mr. Olayomi Koiki can see what is happening across the globe, and we are going to go straight to him in our North London studios, where he's all ready to fire on all cylinders. And let me say, Yomi, massive good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Mr. Archie. Good morning to our listeners. Good morning to all our viewers, and welcome once again to the Wednesday edition of the Starr Radio UK, the morning show. And as it is, the update from Nigeria.
Yes, how are you doing, sir?
Well, we're grateful as the strike is going on in the UK. They do have strike, but it's not as it is in Africa and Nigeria precisely. So the children are at home today because of the teacher strike. As everybody's asking for one pay rise, inflation is kicking in, and that means that the only way we can pass message to the government here as well is to say that money has to be paid as things are becoming more expensive in terms of. So we're doing very well, and it's good to be back again this morning.
Yes, good to have you once again. Well, now we thought that maybe with the central bank announcement of the usage or still the old naira notes being a legal tender, that would have solved all the problems there. But now we have information coming through that is saying that, well, even when you go to the banks, they are rationing the old naira notes. So where are the naira notes? Where is the cash? Where is it? Have they destroyed it, or what are they saying, Yomi?
Well, I don't believe that they will have done a bit of destruction on such old naira note. It's probably kept in the vault. But what the federal government and the CBN needs to do now is to release that money back into the society. Remember that the money was removed, just about December. There was pressure, there was extension until there was a Supreme Court order that now say that the federal government have also accepted that. Buhari passes the buck as Nigerian battle cash crunch, according to 10 days after the Supreme Court extended the legal tender of the 200, the 500, and 1,000 naira note until December, the Central Bank of Nigeria reluctantly announced its compliance, which we announced yesterday with the judgment in a late Monday night statement. I'm not sure why they prefer this late night, release of statement, just like INEC was doing, when it was announcing Tinubu as the president-elect. It added that the decision was taken during a bankers committee, but the arrogant defiance of this man known as Emefiele is causing a lot of disruption in the society. And today, the Archie by Nigerian for the past 3 months have still not yet been able to be resolved. If you do not have the new naira note, why not allow the old one back into the circulation as quickly as possible? But the defiance of the order of the Apex Court and the insensitive to the hardship occasioned by the thoughtless and poorly implemented naira redesign policy mark a terrible denouement to the 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari. Like I said, this government will be remembered by Nigerians and the diaspora for a very long time. Imagine the diaspora that have the money that wants to help the family back home, but the family cannot get access to that money. So both we, the diaspora, and the Nigerians, which are our family back home, we are all suffering from the negligence, the situation, the insensitive of the President Muhammadu Buhari's government. And as his 8 years tenure is winding down, I'm sure so many Nigerians probably can't wait, but they're not too sure of what is going to come with the new one coming in as well.
Now, you were talking about the fact that Buhari decided to pass the buck to as Nigerian battles the cash. Who was he blaming? Is he blaming the CBN, governor, or who was he blaming there?
Well, I think Buhari, as we know, is one man that, and when you go back and look at, after he came in as a military dictator in the 80s, is always somebody that is bitter, and that bitterness, has not yet been removed from his heart, especially even some of his statements that he halted during the Twitter removal of his account for a very long time, because he was referring back to the Igbos not understanding how they were dealt with during the Biafra War, even though we know that the Biafra War was something that the British and the Americans supported. Bill Clinton said something around it that they actually left the Biafra War just as they left the Vietnam War as well. But in a 3 month, the battle against the CBN policy lasted. That was acute shortage. So if the president is passing the buck of blame to who? Because the blame should be on his desk. Is the president of the country, and the commercial banks failed to cope with the exigence of the crisis. An increase in failed payment transaction. We talked about that yesterday. Even as much as the transaction was very difficult to be made. I was watching a video this morning, and if you're trying to find network in Nigeria, all you need to do is make your phone up there and continue to search for the network, so that you don't end up paying a lot of money, when you're doing transaction for outside your own vicinity. Even those that have good network in terms of router in the house cannot do those network, transaction. So it seems that Justice John Okoro that issued the order of interim injunction that restrained the federal government through the Central Bank of Nigeria from suspending and determining the ending on February 10th time frame. The application being exploited was not served. Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Salami, who was sued in the case. I don't know if so many people would have to be paying the every price after this government, but since it's the same government coming in for the time being, until should the court overturn the result in favor of Atiku or Peter Obi, then they might be able to look into this crisis that has turned Nigerians to so many beggars. I was looking at a video on Instagram yesterday. This elderly man actually was sick, went with the bed in front of Access Bank, pleading for his money so that he can take care of himself.
A sad one day, a sad one day, a sad one day. Listen to Starr Radio UK. Mobolaji Abdullahi, good morning, Mr. Archie and Mr. Koiki. God bless you and your family over there. And we say God bless you and your family wherever you are. Okay? Thank you very much for joining in. But Yomi, now you were talking about the fact that maybe if it happens that there's the Supreme Court on the petition or the courts that is adjudicating the case of the appeals for the elections, maybe overturns the results, then maybe there'll be a chance for somebody to say that let's have an inquiry into what happened with the printing or the issuance of the new Naira notes and everything that they got. But do you think that have they said anything that maybe they're going to do an investigation, the banking sector, to find out what went wrong? Because if you have a stash of cash, so we printed 10 billion naira, new Naira notes, why weren't they able to actually dispatch those monies or dispense those monies to the various banks for them to be able to also dispense it to their customers?
We don't know how much of the new Naira note has been printed that would have been able to circulate around, but we do know that the government must have prepared that if they are removing the old currency, then they have to also increase the volume of the new one back into the society. But as we speak right now, like I said, the bulk of this blame is still between the federal government and likewise, the CBN. But Nigerians are used to such situation. But what we know that is El Rufai promised Nigerians that, when Tinubu finally get the button, is going to reverse this. Maybe reverse it in a way that he might also have to extend it or abide now and do more printing of money. We don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. But most of the banks, most of the governors, like we said yesterday, are becoming more, worried, especially election is coming on Saturday. And it is still going to have a big impact, especially, some states that are very, very stiff, because some of their governors might be on seat, and we might see changes. Kaduna State is expected to be going into election, Lagos State or your state and so many other states like that. And if the situation like we saw during the election on the 25th, even though the election went ahead, but we saw how it all happened. But the pressure still on the governors now is, this is what is going to matter to them, because the voters are in their state and they might vote against them, especially for a policy that some of the APC governor believe shouldn't have happened at this particular time when election is just about a few months away.
Well, listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. Updates from Nigeria. 12 minutes past 11 the time, a Wednesday edition of the morning show. And you know that we are pressed with time. But let's quickly run through a couple of stories, then I'll hand over to Yomi. Now, some police personnel, we were thinking that with everything the government is doing, they've got some money somewhere that they will try to, cushion those who actually need. Everybody needs it, but some of the institutions, we have to make sure that they are there. Now, some police institutions, police officers, or some police forces are also expressing concerns over the delay in the payment of their February salaries. Now, this is the case. Today is what? The 15th, midway in March. They've not received their salaries. What assurance? What is exactly going on there?
Well, according to the headline, we are hungry, cheated, oppressed by Buhari's government. Nigerian police kicked over unpaid February salaries. This is not the first time there have been reports on policemen complaining over delay in the payment of their salaries and allowance. Some personnel of the Nigerian police force have expressed concern over delay in the payment. What could be the delay? Is there a backlog in the payment? Is there a delay from transaction and these are the reason why the Yorubas and the Biafras are saying that this constitution that is being used in Nigeria right now is not working, because everything is controlled from the center in the capital city. And it's not like here in UK where the Wales have their own police force, Birmingham has their own, Manchester have their own, but right here in Nigeria is a different thing. This is not the first time it's happening. Last year we saw Osun State policemen complaining that Okada riders are actually sleeping with their women because they could not get money to look after their women in the house anymore. But according to the report, some of the officers who spoke, threatened to boycott the election of the 18th of this Saturday coming. But the question is, how soon are we going to find a situation where Nigerians' institution will be respected? And if institutions are not respected, we're going to see more of a criminality of such institution when they are in the uniform, extorting 100 naira, 200 naira, and sometimes a big money from innocent citizens across Nigeria.
Now, you did talk about the fact that who is going to be paying them? Is it the states that are paying them or the federal government?
Is the federal. The federal is in charge of the police, not the state. So the state is just supporting with equipment and necessary, facilities that can help them, manage crises and situation on the ground. And sometimes, private sector do support the state as well. But what we can say is that the police are being paid from the federal, and this is why the institution, as we have it under the 1999 Constitution, is not working, for as many of each of the states.
Okay, listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. It's Olayomi, Koiki in our North London studios. I'm Archie here in the South studios, and we're bringing you updates from Nigeria. Well, let's quickly go on to the Nnamdi Kanu case, where submissions on behalf of the family of Nnamdi Kanu to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee inquiry into the handling of the state level hostage situation. Now, what is the family of Nnamdi Kanu saying?
Well, yesterday, the legal team operating on behalf of Nnamdi Kanu here in UK released a statement. The Foreign Affairs Selected Committee inquiries publishes submissions on behalf of the British citizen Nnamdi Kanu. And later on tonight on Niger Voices, we're going to explore that a little bit because of the time this morning. We were able to do in-depth analysis on Nnamdi Kanu, because if some of us that live there and our children end up in Africa and they are kidnapped or they are picked away and the British doesn't make any impact. We've seen that cases of British citizens, especially in Iran, how they make effort. But what is the difference between Nnamdi Kanu as a British citizen. Remember that he was traveling on a British passport until he was kidnapped and renditioned back to Nigeria. But the Foreign Affairs Selected Committee inquiries into the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, handling of a state-level hostage situation, has now published a submission by Bidemans LLP on behalf of Nnamdi Kanu's family into the failure of the Foreign and Commonwealth Department Office to take appropriate action in response to Mr. Kanu's torture, extraordinary rendition, and arbitrary detention. The mandate of the inquiry is to discuss the process and approaches taken by the British government in securing the release of detainees in the Iran and elsewhere. The submission also therefore examine the British government approach in Mr. Kanu's case, and likewise highlight the limited effectiveness of that approach in the face of the serious breaches of international law that have been and continue to be committed against Kanu. The submission also makes recommendation for Nnamdi Kanu as well. Mr. Kanu is a British national who ordinarily reside in UK with his wife and children, but on the 19th day of June 2021, Nnamdi Kanu was adopted from the airport in Nairobi, Kenya, detained, tortured for about around 10 days in Kenya. He was then subjected to extradition from Kenya to Nigeria to face criminal persecution. Remember that the court in Nigeria has found him not guilty, all charges thrown away, but the federal government has still not yet abide by his own law and his own court.
Do you think that maybe Tinubu, if he's sworn in, will pull a fast one? Maybe it's something to say that, you know what, for us to have the peace of mind in that particular area and then release him, maybe a trump card. You think something of the sort will happen?
Well, should Buhari, might still be able to do something, we don't know. Maybe Buhari might be able to look into the case of Nnamdi Kanu before his tenure expired, in the next few months, May 29, if all goes as planned. But the new government coming, which is Bola Tinubu, will have a lot to deal with. He's not just going to be dealing with Nnamdi Kanu, he's going to be dealing with a lot of other issues, the insecurity, the economy. He's going to have to deal with the Yoruba nation, those that are agitating, Professor Obanjo Akintoye leading the Yoruba nation struggle. He's going to have to deal with, the attack on, Sunday Igboho's house on the 1st of July 2021 as well, when he was almost assassinated, in his premises, even though the, damages has been done to his property, but the court has not yet paid those charges because the federal government is challenging it. So the new government has a lot on its table. The economy, the jobs, Nigerians are becoming more concerned, and as also more Nigerians are trying to find their way out. And as you're trying to find your way out, you might end up in another country where you become a victim, as we've seen. But the case of Nnamdi Kanu today is now one case that is now being highlighted. Remember that last year, November, the High Court here in the United Kingdom considered argument on the United Kingdom in action on the brazen and the violent extraordinary rendition of a British citizen. Should we be concerned, those of us that are living in UK, that should our children travel abroad and they are found for whatever reason, whether in the country or another country looking for them, and they're kept in there, taken away, and nothing is done? So the case of Nnamdi Kanu is just like a case study that will be studied in the near future.
Well, does your British citizenship actually work for you? Nnamdi Kanu doesn't seem to experience that. But what do you think? As Yomi is saying, we want to know your take on that. But listeners, Starr Radio UK, it is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Let's go back to Yomi for the rest of the stories. Over to you, sir.
Well, we're just going to fly through it quickly in under a few minutes, and then later on this evening, join us as we're going to explore more, like I said, on the case of Nnamdi Kanu, a British citizen holder. 900 Boko Haram collaborators and family members are nabbed. I mean, that is a huge number. Who are these individuals? Their families, their children, and there are sometimes those that are also supporting the insurgency, in the northeast of Nigeria. Over 900 people made up of women, children, elderly people suspected to be families and collaborators of the insurgents have been arrested, according to the MNTJF. The multinational joint task force says its troops of Sector 3 and 4 apprehended more than 900 suspected family members, collaborators of the Boko Haram and the ISWAP insurgency. This was contained today by the spokesman of the MTJF, N. Danjanama Chad Kamaruddin Adegoke. The statement said the infighting by the Boko Haram and the ISWAP terrorist groups and effect of the MNJTF and other national operation bombardment, especially the airstrike, had triggered their movement. So how are they going to deal with this amount of numbers? Remember that just last week there's about almost 1,000 people surrender to the government. So it seems that the government will have a lot to deal with in terms of how they're going to manage these individuals. So let's go straight to some of the headlines. As we keep saying, Nigerians are not the only one facing the burden of expertise leaving their country, especially from the health sector. Nigeria and 36 African countries now face health worker shortage amid foreign recruitment. This is coming from the WHO, World Health Organization. We've seen, the term Japa in Nigeria is what they use, but not just those that are non-professionals, but mostly professionals that are invited here. Very soon more teachers will be leaving Nigeria because the UK government has brought out a scheme that allows those that are in that sector to come into the UK and live here permanently and work as well. So, but that also have a big impact for those back home as well. Let's take the next one. Immigration vows to stop foreigners from influencing the March 18 election. This is a concern. Imagine here in UK and the election that will make decision to take us through the next government, and then we have foreigners that are not allowed to vote, and then also voting. We've seen that a lot of foreigners have been able to inflict, get into the system of Nigeria by getting their PVC. And when you have the PVC, you can easily vote, but they are not Nigerians. But the Nigerian Immigration Services has now pledged to be more vigilant ahead of the March 18 Saturday governorship and the state assembly election, which is coming up in the next 72 hours. According to Aminu Shamsuddin, the NIS controller in Kwara State, was actually saying this morning, Wednesday. Mr. Shamsuddin said the command would deploy more than 1,000 personnel to border areas and the polling units. So definitely these individuals are not even living in Nigeria, but they've got PVC. Sometimes the politicians have been able to go into those territories, give them the PVC, and during the election they bring them in with trucks and they allow them to change the narratives in some of the local government as well. So we hope they can work on that. So I'm going to go straight to the social media this morning and see what is trending on the social media this morning. Once again, I want to take this one before we go straight to the social media. I think I just picked that up. The British government saying that the election in Nigeria, according to them, is okay. Okay, we'll see if I can find that story and then I'll bring that on, because that is the coming from the British High Commissioner Katrina Lang, saying that as the election might not be perfect, but I'll try and bring that up before we end the program if I can still find it from one of the headlines that I was looking at just earlier on. But I think I've got it somewhere right here. Once again, a very good morning. The UK government says Nigerians should be proud of the presidential election despite setback. I mean, I'm not sure Nigerians will be reacting, very, very well with this statement, again, coming from the British government. And let me get a little bit further. Yeah, I got it here. So the UK government, according to Katrina Lang, the British High Commissioner, says Nigerians should be proud of the presidential election despite some of the setback. The outgoing, so it seems that she's going to be outgoing as well. So, after a couple of years in Nigeria, the outgoing British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Lang, yesterday stated this while fielding questions from the newsmen after she paid a farewell visit to the Senate President Ahmed Lawan at the National Assembly in Abuja. The United Kingdom has urged Nigerians to be proud of the February 25th presidential election and the National Assembly election, despite the various reports setback, particularly from the INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission. The outgoing British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Lang, said this while fielding question. The British envoy described Nigerian democracy as fascinating, despite the contentions of the 2023 electoral process by some of the political actors. The British asked about our impression of Nigerian democracy. Katrina Lang said, Nigerian politics is just so fascinating. I was here for the last election. I will finish with this election. I am indeed impressed with the Nigerian democracy. Well, like I said, how Nigerians will be reacting to these, we'll probably be discussing that later on. How are the international communities have influence on what we can call our election in Africa, and like we are saying in Nigeria precisely. So Katrina Lang believed that as much as we might not have got it right, the election was still not as bad as a lot of us are discussing it this morning. So that would then take us through to the social media this morning and see what is trending. The British is trending under Nigeria. I'm not sure. Quite a lot of message around the British this morning. So let's see if we can pick anything around such. Okay, let's look at Kemi Olunloyo. Dr. Kemi Olunloyo, as she's found to be called. Breaking: David Odoye is leaving UK back to his hideout in Cotonou before the British Home Office deport him after hearing what the Uni Oxford said. He should be handed over to the official DSS in Nigeria for inciting election violence when Tinubu won over Obi, asking his fans to get arms. Let me give you a background of David Odoye. David Odoye, we've talked about him a few times on this program, is an investigative journalist, but is presently here in UK. He was also part of those that had to run away during the EndSARS. Quite influential on the social media, very powerful with his messages as well. But it seems that the situation between him and the University of Oxford, through a fellowship award that he was given, that award was removed from him. And he believed that the reason that award was removed has got to do with the governor of Kaduna State that has paid money to the African Development Society that creates award. Let's look at Hosseini Rufai, one of the journalists as well in Nigeria. This land called Lagos was owned by the British for 99 years, from 1861 to 1960. Most of the initial development was done by the British. Let's look at what Are Kanonwe Kankanfo, Think Yoruba Force, is also putting out there. What is this? I'm not going to mention the word that he has used there. Is simply saying is that because the British Empire conquered Lagos Island in 1861, it still belongs to the British in 2023 with the same logic. Because the British conquered Benin Kingdom in the 1890, it still belongs to the British also because the British annexed the Egba Kingdom in 1917 after the Abudi War. Egba Kingdom belongs to the British Empire with a question mark. He has forgotten that Britain conquered Hong Kong from China and the Chinese took it back from UK in 1997. Many of these, again, I'm not going to mention the word there is not a very good word. TV presenters are dumb than we think. Is simply justifying the use of war and bloodshed by settlers to take over indigenous land. You know that this Akotileta, somebody that is actually selling his own to somebody else, is also part of those who call Yoruba people tribalists, and by God, when we respond to their inanity, it is said to that the Labour Party and its apologists are haters of Yoruba people and Yoruba civilization. So I think this is the argument going on right now on the social media. I mean, like I said, this is where the battle goes in for Nigerians to discuss issues. Again, the black diaspora, the British concentration camps in Kenya, they raped 10,000s of women and girls. They murdered 10,000s of them right after the World War II ended, 1952 to 1960, in the name of Queen Elizabeth government. And it's also got a bit of a video around it. Let's probably hear a little bit from that, and then that will end us from the social media this morning. Once again, later on at about 1800 hours, there'll be a lot to discuss on Niger Voices. So let's take a look into that particular headline that we just gave right now.
And back. The Kikuyu were herded into concentration camps and fortified villages, almost the entire population of over 1 million people. People were systematically tortured to death. They invented a new kind of pliers whose purpose was first to crush men's testicles and then to cut them off. They raped women with bayonets. They raped men. Similarly, a favourite technique was to ram sand up the rectum with a stick. Sometimes they were rolled up in barbed wire and kicked around the compound until they bled to death. Some of the British soldiers boasted about this. This is within living memory. The Colonial Secretary lied about it. The papers documenting it were burnt. The impact of the rich and powerful nations has been so phenomenally murderous and destructive that it has been completely airbrushed from our national consciousness. In order to justify the land-grabbing colonial projects, you had to create an ideology. We, the Europeans or the Americans, have come to rescue the rest of the world from its depravity and backwardness. But in order to do that, you have to be able to demonstrate that the rest of the world is depraved and backward. From this arose the racism that is still with us today. It was a necessary component of the colonial project. Some people might claim, well, okay, we broke a few eggs to make this omelette. It's as if all those human beings were eggs. But look at the omelette. Isn't it fantastic? Look, we made this fantastic omelette. Forget about all that unpleasant stuff and let's just celebrate where we are. Where we are is a continuation of the project. We commodified people's land and people's labour and turned it into our property. We're also destroying the rest of the living world alongside it. We don't have to be like this.
Well, that is about it, and I'm sure, as we all know, I was doing a documentary program a few days ago, and I was looking at 65 countries that exit the British Empire. Ghana is one of them, India, but in Nigerian case, maybe it could have been 3 countries, but rather 370 ethnic groups were put together, and today everybody is known as Nigerians rather than Yorubas, Hausas, Igbos, and then likewise other ethnic groups as well. But this is still what the Yoruba nation and the Biafra are still asking, that who should we blame for these, trap that we've been since 1914. And as you can see that the debate going on the social media, that somebody is still referring to British taking the land for 99 years. Is the land truly with us now? The question is to the audience to answer that.
Well, the question is to you, our wonderful viewers and listeners, to answer that question. But you know what? You can do it best when this evening, exactly at 18 hours GMT, when Mr. Olayomi Koiki is on with the Niger Voices, you join in and we do all that there. So, Yomi, let me say thank you. But before you go,
well, tonight is going to be packed again. Remember that last week we were preparing for 72 hours to the election, but this time around I'm going to be looking at the issue around a British passport holder, like the case of Nnamdi Kanu. So we're going to explore on that more. We're going to be talking about the election coming up as well. Quite a lot of comment coming here. We can't use this language from some of our listeners. So tonight is all about the issue surrounding Nnamdi Kanu. This could happen to anyone. I remember some girls were traveling to Ghana. I'm not sure whether you remember the story. And they got trapped in Ghana, but eventually they were brought back here to serve their sentence. But again, tonight you don't want to miss the Niger Voices. It's going to be very hot.
Okay, Yomi, thank you very, very much. Have a lovely day, and we'll catch up later.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Well, listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. Let's take a quick break, some music, and then I will be bringing you all the other stories making the rounds. As I did say earlier on, we will be going to the Houses of Parliament exactly at 12 o'clock because the Chancellor of the Exchequer is going to be reading the budget. Everybody is quite apprehensive. We're going to be seeing what is going to happen there. But wherever you are, stay tuned. Don't go away. Enjoy this song from a cover version of Bob Marley's song, Change Those Crazy Ball Heads Out of the Town. Cover version by Mo Ali. Enjoy it, and I'll be with you in a moment.
We're gonna chase those crazy bald heads out of town. Chase those crazy bald heads out of a town. 'Cause I build the cabin, and I plant the corn. So did not my people before me slave for this country? Now you look what they have done. They heat up all my corn. Chase those crazy, chase those crazy, chase those crazy Paul head, chase those crazy bumpers, chase those crazy ball heads right out of town. Oh, still little pop, still little pops to the that's his baby. So she's little top to them start I know pop still the rapper. Running and you're running away. You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running, but you can't run away from yourself. 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 You must have done something wrong. Said you must have done something wrong. Why you can't find the place where you belong? Well, wow, you're running away. You're running away. Tell me why you're running away. And you're running away. Hey, every man think that his burden is the heaviest. Every man think that his burden is the heaviest. I still do now. Who feels it knows it, Lord. Who feels it knows it, Lord. Who feels it knows
Broadcasting
it,
worldwide,
Lord.
online 24/7.
Running away. Come on, don't you run away, my brother, now. My brother, don't you run away. My sister, don't you run away.
This is Starr Radio, UK.
Don't you run away.
Okay, some reggae tune today. I think that's the second reggae tune I brought you today, isn't it? Okay, so take those crazy ball heads out of the town. I don't mean anybody who is a ball-headed person has to be chased out. Some of them are crazy ones, and they are the ones that need to be what? Chased out of this place. All right then. So wherever you are, it is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Bringing the time now straight to 11:41, and let's crack on because we are pressed with time. Yes. So what's happening in other parts of the world? So we'd say, namely, on the African continent. Sad story, a student died after a truck rams into Uganda classroom. The accident happened at around 3:30 p.m. when the driver of Sino truck lost control of the vehicle and veered into the school computer lab. It's sad. It's sad, and I bet you by this time they are saying that some witches in the guy's family were the ones who caused the truck to lose control to come and kill him. Now, the accident happened at around 3:30 p.m. when the driver of the Sino truck lost control of the vehicle and veered into the school computer lab that was occupied by students and killed 3 on the spot. Now, 18 others were injured in the process and were immediately evacuated to the nearby medical facilities to receive treatment. Local media reported sourcing traffic police spokesperson. Now, a very, very sad one. Mr. Kifasi Katumba, the school head teacher, said the driver of the ill-fated Sino truck first hit the school gate before crashing into the computer lab and senior 4 West classroom. Now, the driver seems to have failed to negotiate the corner and thought the truck would stop if it hit the school gates. Unfortunately, it just continued moving, crashing into the computer lab where it killed 2 students on the spot and injured several others. The management of the school has reportedly sent other students home until next Monday as they recover from shock following the tragedy. Well, a sad one there. Well, so coming away from Starr Radio UK. Now, in Madagascar as well, a shipwreck has killed about another 34 people. The death toll seems to be rising, and that pertains to the boat which was carrying about 60 passengers sank off the northern coast of the big island. A first report on Monday reported about 20, but it's now risen to 34, and we hope that those who have lost their lives will be found there in the midst. Okay. But it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK. Let's move on straight to one other story coming from Ethiopia. Ethiopia's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister hosted on Wednesday, March 15th, that's today, the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. The U.S. top diplomat who is set to visit 2 countries on the continent will first meet with Ethiopian federal officials and Tigrayan representatives in Addis Ababa. He will discuss the implementation of the peace deal that ended the war in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, as well as humanitarian support. The conflict led the U.S. to suspend some preferential trade agreements with Ethiopia, which could also be on the agenda. At the start of the meeting, Blinken said it was very, very good to be back in Africa, especially to be in Ethiopia, as I think a very important moment, a moment of hope, given the peace in the north that is taking hold and that continues to move forward, he said. Now, according to the U.S. Department of State press statement, Blinken will also meet humanitarian partners and civil society actors to discuss humanitarian assistance, delivery, food security, and human rights. Now, while there, Blinken will also meet with the African Union Commission chairperson. The first ever visit to Niger by a U.S. Secretary of State. On March 16, Secretary Blinken will meet President Mohamed Bazoum and the Foreign Minister Hosumi Masudu in Niamey. And it's all in line with the Americans trying to take control of the training of or exercises with the countries in the Sahel region, so that they will use their military assistance rather than going to the Russians, and that seems to be what is panning out. Yes. But let's move on straight to some other story making rounds. Going straight to Ghana as well. Now that's our story. Where if you come to Accra, you go to the presidency. You go to Parliament and you see everything that seems to be going on there. The opulence, the way people live their lives there. But theater lamps at the Wild West District Hospital have not been working for almost 2 years. Now, doctors are therefore left with no choice but to use mobile phone touches to help them perform surgeries on patients. Now, do they mean to say that the whole country cannot afford to do so? Was it deliberate? Or is it something that cannot be fixed? Or would it cost an arm and a leg for that to be fixed? And if that is even the issue, can't government cough up the money for that to be done? Maybe after the program, I'll try to Google and find out how much that kind of light will be. And how come the government have not been able to do so? And that's why on the 6th of March, when Ghanaians were celebrating the 66th anniversary of the independence, I was saying that, well, I don't think that celebration per se, that I mean, everybody can be in their houses, their homes, and then we can have this, and the president can give a statement, and that should be okay. But going out, organizing all these march passes and all those things, spending all those monies, some could have been used to do that, couldn't it? But at times we get our priority wrong, because we are there when we are in desperate times, and we think that, oh, you know, let's live normal, or even above, let others think that everything is okay. But that shouldn't be the case, especially when it comes to the country, a nation. But well, what do you think about all that? That's kind of people that we've got leading us. And so if I sing or I play Chase This Crazy Ball Heads, don't blame me. It's what is happening. All right then. Now moving on. Well, there were some people who were calling for maybe a real look at the awards that was given by the president over the weekend. But now the former Attorney General and Minister of Justice Merita Brew Apia Opong wrote formally to reject National Honours Award presented to awardees by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on March 14, 2023. According to a presidential staffer, Charles Niteko, the former AG, who was to be awarded for her role in helping Ghana win a maritime dispute with Ivory Coast in 2017, turned down the offer. Aside Merita Brew, the Jubilee House employee also reported that lawyer Fui Chikata, who was also part of the specific legal team, also turned down the award, describing both rejection as sad. Well, they think that, well, we don't need that award, especially if they reckon that while they were in power, you were chastising them for whatever they were doing. So how come you want to celebrate them? Well, someone say that, well, we always find a silver lining in a clouded sky. But what do you think about all that? It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Let's move on to some other stories making the rounds in other parts of the world. Straight on to Pakistan. Imran Khan, Pakistan former Prime Minister, decries arrest attempt amid violence. The story says that Pakistan's main opposition leader Imran Khan says authorities are acting outside the law in their attempt to arrest him. They should all be subject to the law of the land, he said. Now, police have clashed with supporters of Mr. Khan, a former prime minister, outside his residence as they tried to detain him on a court order. He is facing allegation he stole staff state gifts while in office. He says the case is politically motivated. Now, there was a tense situation outside his compound in the city of Lahore on Tuesday as police tried to force their ways in. Now, officers fired tear gas shells to disperse supporters of Mr. Khan, who threw stones and bricks. In a video address, the politician, 70, offered to sign a guarantee that he will appear in an Islamabad court on Saturday. He added that there were security concerns as 2 militant attacks had previously taken place at the court. Well, I remember that as well. But what do you think? Lots more going to be coming your way from there. It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, Mr. Khan happened to greet supporters after the police withdrew. Is the latest that has come through. Is the latest. Main opposition leader Imran Khan has greeted supporters outside his home just hours after there were violent clashes as the police tried to arrest him. He addressed the crowd and took pictures with those gathered near his compound in the city of Lahore. In one video, he can be seen wearing a gas mask. Police fired tear gas shells during clashes throughout the night. But well, he is standing up with some of his supporters. What happens from that? Well, it's coming away from Starr Radio UK. The Chinese doctor who became a whistleblower exposing the SARS cover-up has died. Now, Jiang Yangyong, a former military surgeon who blew the whistle on Chinese authorities' cover-up of the 2003 SARS epidemic, has died aged 91. He died of pneumonia on Saturday in Beijing. Family, friends, and Chinese language media in Hong Kong reported. Now, Dr. Jiang was praised for saving lives after writing a letter in the early stage of the SARS crisis, which revealed officials were playing down the threat. But he endured house arrest at one point for his unwavering outspokenness. Now, SARS infected more than 8,000 people worldwide in 2003. Of these, 774 died, according to the World Health Organization figures. Now, Dr. Jiang had been working in Beijing hospital in April 2003 when he was alarmed to hear the Chinese health minister telling the public there were only a handful of cases of a new deadly respiratory disease. Well, he's died. Well, he stood his ground. As I say all the time, you try to stand your ground because of something that you believe in, you might have some problem on your hand, but you still believe in it, stand for it. What about that? Okay, one final story. Ukraine war. Florida Ron DeSantis invited to visit after remarks. Who invited him? Ukraine has invited Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to visit after the top Republican dismissed the Russia invasion as a territorial dispute. Now, Mr. DeSantis is widely expected to run for president in 2024 and made his remarks in response to questions sent to possible Republican contenders. The former congressman said continued U.S. support of Ukraine was not among the country's vital national interests. Now, Republican senators have lined up to criticize his comments. Now, several senior lawmakers accused Mr. DeSantis of dismissing or minimizing alleged Russian war crimes in Ukraine and said Moscow's aggression should not be dismissed. Mr. DeSantis has not officially announced his intention to challenge former President Donald Trump for the Republican nomination, but he has been talking or taking all the necessary steps, suggesting he will do so. In his response to a questionnaire by the Fox News anchor Tucker Carlson, he said, while the U.S. has many vital national interests, securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness within our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, culture, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. Does he understand territorial dispute? Well, Ukraine's foreign ministry spokesman Oleg Nikolenko criticized Mr. DeSantis' comments and tweeted his invitation to the top Republican on Tuesday. Now, definitely, that will be raising some ugly hairs. And the question is, will Americans still vote for him or Republicans vote for him? And is that what they Republicans believe in? Or this is just a one-off? What do you think? Well. It is Starr Radio UK. I'm going to be taking you to the House of Parliament in the next 4 minutes, so just bear with me. The final story from here. Two stories. The budget is going to be read this afternoon by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. We'll be taking to the House of Parliament, where the Prime Minister will be taking the Prime Minister's question time. Then after which we'll have the Chancellor of the Exchequer also coming in to present the budget for 2023. But wherever you are, keep your dial so logged on Starr Radio UK. We'll make sure that we don't miss anything. You don't miss out on anything. Now, the final story: RAF and German jets have intercepted Russian aircraft near Estonian space. The story says RAF and German fighters have intercepted a Russian aircraft near Estonian airspace in the first operation, a joint operation of its kind. The two Typhoons were scrambled on Tuesday to intercept an IL-78 Midas refueling plane flying between St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. Now, the plane had failed to communicate with air traffic control in Estonia. The British and German air forces are currently conducting planned joint NATO air policing in the region. The interception itself was routine, but it is the first time such an operation has been carried out together by the two countries. The incident comes amid heightened tensions between NATO and Russia over the Russian invasion of Ukraine, although there is no evidence of any link with the Tuesday reported collision between Russian fighter jet and a US drone over the Black Sea. Now, after escorting the Midas, the two jets were redirected to intercept an 148 airliner that was also passing close to Estonia airspace. The jets are part of the RAF's 140 Expeditionary Air Wing and the Chairman 71 Tactical Air Wing Richthofen. Well. This is Starr Radio UK, and this is where I bring the first part of the program to a close. I'm going to be taking you to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. But whilst we get on our horses to get you there, just enjoy the rest of that tune that I brought your way, Them Crazy Ballheads. And I will be taking you to the Houses of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. But remember, this evening, exactly like 18 hours, we'll be having Mr. Olayomi Koiki joining in to bring you the Niger Voices. Make a date so you don't miss out on anything. It's with me, Archie, saying, have a top of the day. Bye-bye for now.
Them crazy, we're gonna chase those crazy bald heads out of town. Chase those crazy bald heads out of a town. 'Cause I built a cabin, and I plant the corn. So did not my people before me slave for this country? Now you look what they have done. They heat up all my corn. Chase those crazy, chase those crazy, chase those crazy Paulhead, chase those crazy bumpers, chase those crazy ballheads right out of town. Oh, see the little pops, still the little pops, do that, that's his baby. So she's little top, little star, that no pops, still the rapper. Running and you're running away. You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running, but you can't run away from yourself. Can't run away from yourself. Can't run away from yourself. Can't run away.
This is Starr Radio UK.
In your car,
At work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
You must have done something wrong. Said you must have done something wrong. Why you can't find the place where you belong?
Problem of partly the government's making
well,
not negotiating
you're running away.
We used to send back many more people. They don't do that.
You're running
And the consequence of it on a local level is that there is a detention centre in Kidlington that had closed in 2018 after a 30-year-long campaign, that to the tune of £400 million, that one and one in Gosport are going to be opened. That's 400 beds, so it's barely touching the sides of the problem. The main thing that I would rather that 400 million were invested in was that backroom staff at the Home Office so that they can process these applications quickly. And the thing that I find just boggles my mind is now they're saying they'll send these asylum seekers who are already here a form that they can fill in to determine whether or not they're allowed to stay. Imagine if they did that before they got on the small boats in the first place. That would be called a safe and legal route. And yet they're determined not to set up those routes immediately. I don't understand what the delay is with the setup of those routes.
How do you think the Prime Minister is finding his reception with the Conservative backbenchers at the minute? It felt like there was a bumpy period at the beginning of the year. Apologies, I am going to go to Jess Phillips now. We're going to go live to the House of Commons and we're going to take Rishi Sunak.
At the UK-France summit, we signed a new illegal immigration deal to protect our borders. Over the weekend, we facilitated the sale of Silicon Valley Bank at no cost to the taxpayer. And And we have launched a submarine partnership with Australia and the US, launched our integrated review and boosted our defence budget. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Jessica Litz. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've worked for years with women brought here illegally as sex slaves, raped by 30 men a day. Last week, the Prime Minister tweeted that these victims would be denied access to support from our modern slavery system. A tweet that traffickers will hold up to these women and say, see, no one will help you. Before the Prime Minister parrots his prepared answer about increases in the number of people accessing our modern slavery system, let me educate him and everyone else in this House that the biggest increase in the last 10 years has been from the huge increase in British adults and children trafficked for sex and crime within Britain. Not a number they should be proud of. How exactly will I help the next woman I meet brought here illegally from being repeatedly raped if she, as he tweeted, is denied access from our modern slaves?
Mr. Speaker, just to correct the Honourable Lady, it is actually now a minority of people in our modern slavery referral system that are from the UK. That was not the intention of the legislation when it was introduced. We have a proud record of supporting victims of modern slavery, and thousands of victims are supported every year here in the UK, and that will not change as we grip illegal immigration.
Danny Kruger.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Home Secretary said that in recent decades the immigration to this country has been too high, and all the benches opposite howled their disapproval. They want higher immigration, not lower. Does my one honourable friend agree that what we need to do is, rather than importing cheap foreign labour, we need to invest in the skills of our own young people and encourage businesses to do the same?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is right that we do need to encourage long-term investment in the domestic workforce. We'll hear more from this in the Chancellor later this afternoon, but the Department for Work and Pensions is directing support at sectors with labour shortages like construction and social care, and our new skills boot camps are part of a dramatic rebooting of our skills system to support workers to get the skills that they need.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last summer, the Prime Minister claimed he wanted to protect free speech and put a stop to no platforming. So how concerned was he by last week's campaign by Tory MPs to cancel a broadcaster?
Mr. Speaker, as I said at the time, the issues between Gary Lineker and the BBC were for them to resolve, and I'm very glad that they did, and we can look forward to watching Match of the Day again on our screens.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the sight of them howling with rage over a tweet, signing greening letters in their dozens, desperately trying to cancel a football highlight show. That should have been laughable. Instead, it led to a farcical weekend with the national broadcast being accused of dancing to the government's tune by its own employees. Rather than blame everyone else, why doesn't he take some responsibility, stand up to his snowflake MPs waging war on free speech?
Mr. Speaker, just the usual political opportunism from the leader of the Labour Party. Because I don't know if he noticed, but actually first the Shadow Attorney General and then the Shadow Home Secretary actually criticised the language that had been used in the tweet. But what a surprise. He saw the chance to jump on a political bandwagon and changed his mind.
Keir Starmer. So, Mr. Speaker,
I'm not being funny. I think our constituents want to get to the budget. The more that you shout, the more you progress questions. So please, my constituents interested if yours aren't. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, they want more of a Prime Minister who doesn't understand. You can disagree with what somebody says, but still defend their right to say it. He doesn't understand that. We're in a real problem. Does he accept that people's concerns about the BBC have been made worse because the government chose to put a Tory donor with no broadcasting experience in charge of the BBC?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as he well knows, the BBC chairman was appointed before I became Prime Minister. He was appointed. He was appointed.
And the same applies to this side. This budget matters to the people of this country. They want to hear it. Don't keep questions going longer than need be. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there was a rigorous, independent and long-established process. That appointment was supported by expert panel members, as well as the cross-party DCMS Select Committee. Now, it's right. That process is being independently reviewed by the Office for Commissioner of Public Appointments, and we should allow that review to conclude.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is the chair of the BBC isn't just any old Tory donor. He's so close to the Prime Minister.
Order. Mr. Fabricant, I want you to be in for the budget. Cup of teas don't want to come that early.
Mr. Speaker, he's no ordinary Tory donor. He's so close to the Prime Minister, he's been described as his mentor. He helped arrange an £800,000 credit line for the former Prime Minister. A minor detail he forgot to tell the Select Committee, which scrutinised his appointment. Does the Prime Minister think that his friend's position is still tenable?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've just said, the Independent Office for Commissioner of Public Appointments is reviewing what was a rigorous, independent process to appoint the chairman. Instead of prejudging and preempting that review, we should let it conclude and wait for the outcome. That is the right way to do things, and that's what the government will do.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, when people with links to the Tory party somehow find themselves in senior positions at the BBC, it's important that their impartiality is seen to be beyond reproach. So has the Prime Minister received assurances that no one with links to the Tory party was lobbied by Tory MPs or involved in the decision that saw Match of the Day effectively cancelled?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, these are matters. These are matters for the BBC to resolve. And it's right. It's right that the BBC, as an important institution, takes its obligations to impartiality seriously. Right? I care about the integrity and impartiality of our institutions, the BBC, but also the civil service, Mr. Speaker. And it's right that those processes carry on properly. But what I would say to him on this matter, there is an independent review. It's right that that process concludes, and he would, I would hope, respect that process.
He comes here today with these mealy-mouthed platitudes, pretending the actions of his party are nothing to do with him. But the whole country saw how he kept quiet and hid behind the playground bullies while they tried to drive someone out simply for disagreeing with them. An impartial public broadcaster, free of government interference, is a crucial pillar in our country. But isn't that put at risk by the cancel culture addicts on his benches, the BBC leadership that caves into their demands, and a Prime Minister too weak to do anything about them?
Mr. Speaker, we're not going to take any lectures on cancel culture from the party opposite. But we know what this is about, and he's avoided it in 6 questions. They're actually the substance of the issue that this underlied this tweet. And that's what has he done in this past week. The only thing he and his party have done is voted against our bill to stop the boats, Mr. Speaker. Siding with people smugglers over the British people. That's the substance of what's happened. Instead, what have we done is conclude a new migration deal with France, Mr. Speaker. We've managed to sign a new defence partnership with our allies, the US and Australia. We've protected British startups and we have boosted defence spending. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what delivering for Britain looks like.
can I just say to you, the biggest day in the House, and you want to carry on cheering? I'll tell you what, I'll be quiet. Because there is plenty of rumours I've mentioned in the tea room for all sides. So let me say, Angela Richardson wants to get on with the questions. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For decades, Surrey Research Park in Guildford has been home to our pioneering space sector, with Surrey Satellite Technology Limited and now Surrey Space Centre's spacecraft project, which recently received £300,000 to train and recruit dedicated space engineers and create facilities to trial space-related technology. Will my right honourable friend join with me in welcoming this investment? And when his diary allows, will he come and visit Guildford to celebrate successful local innovation and job creation?
Well, I can reassure my honourable friend that we are continuing to invest in the UK's thriving space sector, including in her constituency. A new £6.5 million scheme to support high-impact projects. Space South Central, as she knows, is already the leading regional space cluster in the UK. There's more investment coming, and I look forward to either visiting myself or the Minister of State for Science, Innovation and Technology to make sure that her companies get the recognition they deserve.
SNP leader Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, as households in Scotland were awakening to freezing temperatures, they were met with the news that the electricity grid had been upgraded in order to meet the power demands of the Prime Minister's new swimming pool. So may I ask him, was it whilst he was taking a leisurely dip that he decided to leave households drowning in their energy bills?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thanks to the actions of this government, what we have provided is over £1,300 to help families with their energy bills over the last year. I won't want to preempt what the Chancellor is going to say later, but this is a government that is committed to continuing to help people with the cost of living, and that's what you'll hear later on.
Stephen Flynn.
You've got to wonder what planet he's on, Mr. Speaker, because for households in Scotland, energy prices haven't been frozen at £2,500. Indeed, the average bill in Scotland has been closer to £3,500, a near tripling in just under 2 years. But worse than that, the Chancellor is about to get to his feet and announced that the £400 energy rebate is about to be scrapped for everyone, not just in Scotland, but right across these aisles. So is it not the case that the Tories aren't freezing energy bills, they're looking to freeze households?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, actually, the government is delivering for people across the United Kingdom. Energy bills have been our priority, which is why over £1,000 of support, which is benefiting households in every part of our country. But he talks about delivery. It's now clear that we know because of the SNP that the trains don't run on time. The police are at breaking point. The police are at breaking point, and the NHS in Scotland experienced the longest ever waiting list. Mr. Speaker, that isn't even my assessment. That's what we learned in the SNP's leadership debate last week.
Aaron Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Independent retailers are the lifeblood of our high streets and critical to the regeneration of our town centres, so we should cherish and celebrate the entrepreneurs who set them up and run them. With that in mind, would the Prime Minister join me in congratulating the winners of my recent competition to find Newcastle's best-loved independent shops and market stalls, namely Tony Price Quality Butchers, Me Julie's, Cheeky Cheesecakes, and the overall winner, Anasma Greek Bakery, who only opened in January 2021 and are already expanding to a second site.
Well, I agree with my honourable friend about the incredible benefit that small businesses and independent retailers bring to our high streets and our economy. I congratulate the team at Anasma Greek Bakery for winning the competition, and I know that they will feel reassured by their government's investment in his constituency through the Towns deal that they have, and of course, funding from the Future High Streets Fund.
Stephen Furry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just ahead of St Patrick's Day, can I thank the Prime Minister for his recent deep engagement with Northern Ireland, in particular the conclusion of the Windsor Framework, and hopefully we will see the executive restored shortly. However, that executive is facing a spiral of budget cuts, which will stop it from transforming public services on an invest-to-save basis and investing in a prosperity agenda. So will the Prime Minister and indeed the Chancellor work with the Northern Ireland parties on a financial package in order to transform Northern Ireland accepting the need for strict conditions and a real focus on key areas such as health, education, skills and infrastructure.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman and his colleagues and his party for the engagement they had in the run-up to the Windsor Framework. It was helpful and I appreciated his constructive involvement. And my right honourable friend, the Northern Ireland Secretary, has been working closely and will work closely with all Northern Irish parties, leading discussions on a wide range of issues, including the public finances, because I believe what the honourable gentleman believes is that the people of Northern Ireland need and deserve effective, accountable, devolved government up and running as quickly as possible, and I hope that those talks can be constructive in leading to that aim.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2016, the current Mayor of London promised 0 strikes on London Underground. Today is the 135th day of strikes since then. Will my right honourable friend join with me in condemning those strikes that have brought misery to the travelling public in London, and also condemn the Mayor of London for his failure to address this?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right about the misery being inflicted on Londoners by the incompetent running of TfL. It's worth bearing in mind, not only do the party opposite vote against our minimum service levels, which will provide respite for the hard-working British public, the Mayor of London, since the pandemic, has received £6 billion of additional funding for transport services. So for us to be in the situation that we find ourselves in today is simply unacceptable.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An investigation reported in The Guardian and the BBC revealed that in the last year, on more than 450 instances, sewage was leaking into cancer wards, maternity units and A&E departments. Without urgent action, the legacy of this Conservative government on the NHS will be an image of a nurse cleaning up sewage around a patient in a crumbling hospital. Will the Prime Minister commit to that pledge of building 40 hospitals by 2030, including in West Hertfordshire, and will he establish a fund to repair those hospitals that are in a dire state of disrepair?
Mr. Speaker, we are investing record sums in NHS capital to upgrade dozens of hospitals across the country, but in particular to build 40 new hospitals, and we are committed in particular to a new hospital scheme at West Hertfordshire Hospital NHS Trust as part of that programme, and the programme is working closely with the Trust on their plans in line with the approach that we have taken nationally.
Mark Plitchard.
Speaker, does the Prime Minister agree with me that agri-tech is a vital part of the UK economy, and in particular the excellent work of the Crop and Environment Research Centre at Harper Adams University in Shropshire? I know he has a busy schedule, but could he dispatch the Secretary of State to come and look at that research centre, and in particular the women leading science and maths at Harper Adams, and indeed leading the world?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend, and in particular Harper Adams is a fantastic example of the type of innovation and skills provision that we need in our agri-tech sector, and that's why I'm pleased post-Brexit that we can introduce the gene editing bill, Mr. Speaker, which will help drive productivity and efficiency in our agricultural sector even further.
Speaker, the government promised the 40 new hospitals 3 years ago, and the Prime Minister's just expressed his intention to proceed again. 2 years ago, in St Mary's Paddington Hospital serving my constituency, a ward ceiling fell in during floods, the eye hospital was closed by a fire, and the birth centre and maternity wards are threatened by structural problems. This week, Trust managers said the infrastructure is having an increasing impact on staff and patients. We just can't afford to continue to waste money on failing buildings. But the hospital is waiting for the commitment from the government for the funding under the New Hospitals programme. Will today be the day that the Prime Minister commits to that specifically?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said in my previous answer, the government is committed to the New Hospitals programme. We've committed record sums to NHS capital, not just for that programme, but for smaller scale upgrades across the country, and those conversations with her trust and others are happening in the same way across the country, and I look forward to those conversations continuing.
Vicky Aitken.
Mr. Speaker, government
Governments at all levels, national and local, should always strive to deliver value for money for the taxpayer, particularly in a cost of living crisis. Therefore, does the Prime Minister share my astonishment that my local Labour-led Westminster Council voted last week to raise council tax by 2%, council tenants' rents by 7%, and increase allowances for its senior councillors by up to a staggering 45%.
Prime Minister, you've got to answer.
Well, Mr.
Can I just say, Prime Minister, I don't know who's giving you the advice, but take it from the chair. Please answer.
Mr. Speaker, it is disappointing to see that I think it's been just under a year that the now Labour-run Westminster Council has put its own councillors' pay ahead of everything else. I can't quite believe the figures that we heard from our honourable friend. A staggering, an eye-watering 45% pay increase when people across our country and indeed the world are suffering cost of living pressures. It's clear, Mr. Speaker, that it's only Conservative-run councils that deliver for their residents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every child in the UK is entitled to free NHS dental treatment, but with 80% of practices not accepting children as new patients, is the Prime Minister proud of his record on our children's dental health?
Mr. Speaker, we're investing £3 billion in NHS dentistry, and because of the reforms to the contract, there will be about 10% more activity this year above contracted levels. There are 500 more dentists in the NHS today, but also, I think, almost a 45% increase in the amount of dental care being provided to children.
Eric Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, 5 years ago, £40 million of public funds were set aside for brain tumour research, but recent government figures suggest that a little as a quarter of that money has been deployed to researchers. The mechanism to distribute research funding effectively is broken. As a result, the brain tumour community has not seen the breakthroughs in treatment and survival rates that many of us believe they should have. Does my friend the Prime Minister agree with me that a unique, complex disease needs a unique response? And in what is Brain Tumour Awareness Month, will he make brain cancer a critical research priority across all cancers?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his thoughtful and powerful question. He's absolutely right about the importance of medical research being expedited so we can deliver better care for the people who are affected. I'll make sure that he gets a meeting with the relevant minister so we can ensure that that funding gets out to the people who need it and we can bring relief to them as quickly as we can.
Joanna Chung.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the encouragement of the British government, female prosecutors and female judges in Afghanistan stood up for the rule of law and for a more inclusive and equal nation. Those left behind are in mortal danger. Last year, I met with senior officials at the Foreign Office who were open to making a specific case for at least some of these women to be relocated to the United Kingdom, but nothing has happened since then. This dire situation requires a prime ministerial intervention. So I'm not asking to meet the Prime Minister's officials or his ministers. I'm asking him directly, will he meet with me to see what we can do for these women?
Prime Minister. I'm very happy to meet with the Honourable Lady, and she will know that we take our obligations to those who helped and served in Afghanistan extremely seriously, both through the ARAP scheme and the ACRS scheme. We have already brought 20,000 refugees from Afghanistan to the UK. We've worked closely with the UNHCR and others on those legal routes, but I'd be happy to meet with her to ensure that we're targeting our compassion, our generosity on the people who most need it and not those who are coming here illegally.
Caroline Ansell.
Mr. Speaker, at the height of the pandemic, centre-assessed grades allowed our young people to move forward with their lives. Lara, my very brave young constituent, is now battling cancer and will not sit the GCSE exams she has worked so hard for and could be left with only a certificate of recognition. In exceptional circumstances such as these, why can't the same principle apply? Would my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, look compassionately at this situation?
Prime Minister. Start by sending my best wishes to Lara and thanking my honourable friend for raising her case in Parliament. Of course, it's incredibly upsetting and challenging for children and young people to be diagnosed with a serious illness, and especially so close to their exams. Now, there are allowances that are made, and in the first instance, students will speak to their school or their college to make those reasonable adjustments, but I'll be happy to make sure that we work with my honourable friend to find a resolution in Lara's case.
Dr. Rupahat.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the PM's numeracy drive, but did he know that some 7.1 million adults in England are functionally illiterate? It's often diagnosed late in life, like with TV's J Blades, if at all. So would he thank the entirely voluntary Read Easy, who are turning this round at just £250 cost per new reader, and commit to a national strategy for eradicating this problem that's costing our economy $25 billion a year in lost competitiveness?
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Honourable Lady. Literacy and numeracy are critical for adults to be able to participate both in society and the economy. I'm happy to praise Read Easy for the work that they do. I look forward to learning more about them. But the best way to solve this problem is to ensure that our young children get the reading skills and training and education that they need. And I'm so pleased that because of the reforms introduced by this previous Conservative governments, particularly with phonics, we have now marched up the international league table and have some of the best results for reading that we've seen in a very long time.
Richard Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More than a quarter of the economic output of this country is in sectors overseen by some of our major regulators, such as Ofwat and Ofgem. But historically, there's been very little in the way of oversight to say whether they're doing a good job or a bad job, whether they're achieving international best practice or not. So can the Prime Minister look to see what he can do to address this historical oversight and enable regulators to play their part in ensuring economic growth?
Mr. Speaker, as always, my honourable friend makes a very thoughtful point, and he's absolutely right about the importance of our regulators in driving growth, competitive investment in our economy. I know the Chancellor will have something to say on this later on, but he should rest assured that we will keep at it to make sure that there is accountability and oversight of our regulators. We all want to see more growth in our economy, and they need to play their part in delivering it.
Reb Stringer.
Mr. Speaker, 20 years after defeat in the Second World War, the first Japanese bullet train travelled the 300 miles from Tokyo to Osaka at 200 miles an hour. Isn't it a measure of the government's incompetence, lack of commitment to the regions, lack of commitment to infrastructure, that it is now expected that 24 years after a Conservative Transport Secretary announced that HS2 would happen, that Birmingham, Manchester and London will not be linked by that time?
Mr. Speaker, we're actually delivering the biggest rail investment. Mr. Speaker, the biggest rail investment since the Victorian era. I'll just gently point out to the honourable gentleman, compared to when Labour were last in office, the investment going into the north is 30% higher every single year under this Conservative government. We are delivering for communities across the north with more trains, more buses, more stations and more roads, because a Conservative government doesn't just talk about it, it gets on and delivers it.
Sir Robert Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope very much that later today we'll hear news of help for motorists and small businesses. But for motorists and small businesses in Bromley and the rest of outer London, they're going to be hard hit later this year by the Mayor of London's stealth tax in the form of an ultra-low emission charge. Cost money and jobs. Isn't it time to revisit the Local Government Act and revise it so that such charges can only be imposed on London boroughs with the consent of the boroughs themselves?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend makes an excellent point, and it's right that the Mayor of London should listen to the voices of commuters, of families and of small businesses as he inflicts his damaging tax on them. This government will always be on the side of those people, and this budget will deliver for them too.
And complete Prime Minister's questions.
Well, that concludes Prime Minister's questions as we await the Chancellor, who is making his way to deliver his budget. Keir Starmer there steering away from economic issues at Prime Minister's questions to focus on the BBC and its relationship with the government after the Gary Lineker row. But now we await the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt.
Available to them from the Vote Office in Members' Lobby at the end of the Chancellor's statement and, of course, online. It might also be helpful for some people who are following our proceedings to know that British Sign Language interpretation of the statement, which will continue until the end of the speech of the spokesman for the Scottish National Party, is available to watch on parliamentlive.tv advert. Live subtitling will also be available for the Chancellor's speech and the remainder of today's debate. I hardly need remind honourable members, but I will do for good measure, that they may not make interventions during the Chancellor's statement, nor indeed during the replies of the Leader of the Opposition, or even of the spokesman for the Scottish National Party. Call the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in the face of enormous challenges, I report today on a British economy which is proving the doubters wrong. In the autumn, we took difficult decisions to deliver stability and sound money. Since mid-October, 10-year gilt rates have fallen, debt servicing costs are down, mortgage rates are lower, and inflation has peaked. The International Monetary Fund says our approach means the UK economy is on the right track. Yeah. But we remain vigilant and will not hesitate to take whatever steps are necessary for economic stability. Today, the Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts that because of changing international factors and the measures I take, the UK will not now enter a technical recession this year. Yeah. They forecast we will meet the Prime Minister's priorities to halve inflation, reduce debt, and get the economy growing. We are following the plan, and the plan is working. But that's not all we've done. In the face of a cost of living crisis, we have demonstrated our values by protecting struggling families with a £2,500 energy price guarantee, one-off support, and the uprating of benefits with inflation. Taken together, these measures are worth £94 billion over this year and next, one of the largest support packages in Europe. That averages, Madam Deputy Speaker, over £3,300 of cost of living help for every household in the country. Today, we deliver the next part of our plan, a budget for growth. Not just the growth that comes when you emerge from a downturn, but long-term, sustainable, healthy growth that pays for our NHS and schools, finds jobs for young people and provides a safety net for older people, all whilst making our country one of the most prosperous in the world. Prosperity with a purpose, and that is why growth is one of the Prime Minister's 5 priorities for our country. I deliver that today by removing obstacles that stop businesses investing, by tackling labour shortages that stop them recruiting, by breaking down barriers that stop people working, and by harnessing British ingenuity to make us a science and technology superpower. I start with the forecasts produced by Richard Hughes and his team at the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, who I thank for their diligent work. They have looked in detail at the Prime Minister's economic priorities. The first of those is to halve inflation. Inflation destroys the value of hard-earned pay, deters investment and foments industrial strife. This government remains steadfast in its support for the Independent Monetary Policy Committee at the Bank of England as it takes action to return inflation to the 2% target. Despite continuing global instability, the OBR report today that inflation in the UK will fall from 10.7% in the final quarter of last year to 2.9% by the end of 2023. That is more than halving inflation. High inflation, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the root cause of the strikes we've seen in recent months. We will continue to work hard to settle those disputes, but only in a way that does not fuel inflation. Part of the fall in inflation predicted by the OBR happens because of additional measures I take today. Firstly, I recognise that even though wholesale energy prices have been falling, there is still enormous pressure on family finances. Some people remain in real distress, and we should always stand ready to help when we can. So after listening to representations from Martin Lewis and other experts, I today confirm that the energy price guarantee will remain at £2,500 for the next 3 months. This means the £2,500 cap for the typical household will remain in place when energy prices remain high ahead of an expected fall in prices from July. This measure will save the average family a further £160 on top of the energy support measures already announced. The second measure concerns over 4 million households on prepayment meters. They're often the poorest households, but they currently pay more than comparable customers on direct debit. Ofgem has already agreed with suppliers a temporary suspension to forced installations of prepayment meters, but today I go further and confirm we will bring their charges in line with comparable direct debit charges. Under a Conservative government, the energy premium paid by our poorest customers, our poorest households, is coming to an end. Next, I have listened to representations from the honourable members for East Devon, North Cornwall, Combe Valley and Central Suffolk and North Ipswich about the risk to community facilities, especially swimming pools, caused by high costs. When times are tough, such facilities matter even more. So today I am providing a £63 million fund.
Order! We want to hear what the Chancellor of the Exchequer is actually saying. Enough. Chancellor.
Today I am providing a £63 million fund to keep our public leisure centres and pools afloat. I have also heard from my right honourable friend, the Charities Minister, and his Secretary of State about the brilliant work third sector organisations are doing to help people struggling in tough times. They can often reach people in need that central or local government cannot. So I will give his department £100 million to support thousands of local charities and community organisations do their fantastic work. I also note the personal courage of one of my predecessors, my right honourable friend from Bromsgrove, in talking about the tragedy of suicide and the importance of preventing it. We already invest a lot in this area, but I will assign an extra £10 million over the next 2 years, nearly £1 million for every year that he's been in Parliament, to help the voluntary sector play an even bigger role in stopping families experiencing that intolerable heartache. My penultimate cost of living measure concerns one of our other most treasured community institutions, the Great British Pub. In December, I extended the alcohol duty freeze until the 1st of August, after which duties will go up in line with inflation in the usual way. But today, I will do something that was not possible when we were in the EU and significantly increase the generosity of draft relief so that from the 1st of August, the duty on draft products in pubs will be up to 11 pence lower than the duty in supermarkets. It's a differential a Conservative government will maintain as part of a new Brexit pubs guarantee. Madam Deputy Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, British ale is warm, but the duty on a pint is frozen. And even better, thanks to the Windsor framework negotiated by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, that change will now apply to every pub in Northern Ireland. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've heard the representations from the Honourable Member for Stoke-on-Trent North, my right honourable friend for Witham, and my right honourable friend from South Thanet and the Sun newspaper about the impact on motorists of the planned 11p rise in fuel duty. I noticed the party opposite called for a freeze on this duty. Somehow they forgot to tell the British people they have voted against every single fuel duty freeze for the last 12 years. Because inflation remains high, I have decided now is not the right time to uprate fuel duty with inflation or increase the duty. So here's what I'm going to do. For a further 12 months, I'm going to maintain the 5p cut and I'm going to freeze fuel duty too. That saves the average driver £100 next year and around £200 since the 5p cut was introduced. Our energy price guarantee, fuel duty and duty on a pint all frozen in today's budget. That doesn't just help families, it helps the economy too, because their combined impact reduces CPI inflation by nearly 0.75% this year, lowering inflation when it is particularly high. I now turn to the Prime Minister's second priority, which is to reduce debt. Here too, our plan is on track. Underlying debt is forecast to be 92.4% of GDP next year, then 97.3%, 94.6%, 94.8%, before falling to 94.6% in 27-28. We are meeting the debt priority, and with a buffer of £6.5 billion, it means we are meeting our fiscal rule to have debt falling as a percentage of GDP by the fifth year of the forecast. As a proportion of GDP, our debt remains lower than the USA, Canada, France, Italy and Japan. And because of the decisions I take today and the improved outlook for public finances, underlying debt in 5 years' time is now forecast to be nearly 3 percentage points of GDP lower than it was in the autumn. That means more money for our public services and a lower burden for future generations, deeply held conservative values which we put into practice today. At the autumn statement, I also announced that public sector net borrowing must be below 3% of GDP over the same period. The OBR confirmed today that we're meeting that rule with a buffer of £39.2 billion. In fact, our deficit falls in every single year of the forecast, with borrowing falling from 5.1% of GDP in 23-24 to 3.2% to 2.8% to 2.2% and 1.7% in 27-28. Even better, in the final 2 years of the forecast, our current budget is in surplus, meaning we only borrow for investment and not for day-to-day spending. Day-to-day departmental spending will grow at 1% a year on average in real terms after 24-25 until the end of the forecast period. Capital plans are maintained at the same level set at the autumn statement. We will uprate tobacco duty and we will freeze the gross gaming duty yield bands. We're also maintaining the starting rate for savings and ISA subscription limits, and we'll bring forward a range of measures to tackle promoters of tax avoidance schemes. Madam Deputy Speaker, taken together, today's measures lead to a slightly lower overall tax burden for the rest of the Parliament compared to the OBR's autumn forecast. Other parties run out of money, but a Conservative government is reducing borrowing and improving our public finances. By doing so, we are on track to halve inflation, get debt falling and grow our economy, which I turn to next. Growth, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the Prime Minister's third priority and the focus of today's budget. "13 years ago, we inherited an economy that had crashed. But since they might want to listen to this, because since 2010, we've grown more than major countries like France, Italy, or Japan, about the same as Europe's largest economy, Germany. We've halved unemployment, we've cut inequality, we've reduced the number of workless households by 1 million. For the first time ever, because of rises in tax thresholds made by successive Conservative chancellors, people in our country can earn £1,000 a month without paying a penny of tax or national insurance. The party opposite opposed those tax reductions, but they have helped lift 2 million people out of absolute poverty after housing costs, including 400,000 pensioners and 500,000 children. That averages 80 pensioners and 100 children lifted out of poverty for every single day we've been in office. And today we face the future with extraordinary potential. The World Bank said that of all big European countries, we are the best place to do business. Global chief executives say that apart from America and China, we are the best country to invest in. We became the second country in the world to have a stock of foreign direct investment worth $2 trillion. And London has just pipped New York and 53 other global cities to be the best place in the world for female entrepreneurs. Declinists are wrong about our country for another reason, which is our strength in new industries that will shape this century. Over the last 13 years, under Conservative leadership, we have become the world's third trillion-dollar tech economy after the US and China. We've built the largest life sciences sector in Europe, producing a COVID vaccine that saved 6 million lives and a treatment that saved 1 million more. Our film and TV industry has become Europe's largest, with our creative industries growing at twice the rate of the economy. Our advanced manufacturing industries produce around half the world's large civil aircraft wings. And thanks to a clean energy miracle, we have become a world leader in offshore wind. Other parties talk about a green energy revolution. So I gently remind them that nearly 90% of our solar power was installed in the last 13 years, showing it's the Conservatives who fix the roof when the sun is shining. Now, let's turn to what the OBR say about our growth prospects. In November, they expected that the UK economy would enter recession in 2022 and contract by 1.4% in 23. That left many families feeling concerned about the future. But today, the OBR forecast we will not enter a recession at all this year, with a contraction of just 0.2%. And after this year, the UK economy will grow in every single year of the forecast period by 1.8% in 24, 2.5%, 2.1%, and 1.9% in 27. They also expect the unemployment rate to rise by less than 1 percentage point to 4.4%, with 170,000 fewer people out of work compared to their autumn forecast. Madam Deputy Speaker, that return to growth has direct consequences for our role on the global stage. I am proud that we are giving the brave people of Ukraine more military support than anyone else in Europe. On Monday, we were able to go even further, with my right honourable friend announcing a £5 billion package of funding for the Ministry of Defence, an additional £2 billion next year and £3 billion the year after. Today, following representations from our persuasive Defence Secretary, I confirm that we will add a total of £11 billion to our defence budget over the next 5 years, and it will be nearly 2.25% of GDP by 2025. We were the first large European country to commit to 2% of GDP for defence, and we will now raise that to 2.5% as soon as fiscal and economic circumstances allow. And following representations from the equally persuasive Minister for Veterans Affairs, I am today also increasing support for our brave ex-servicemen and women. We will provide a package worth over £30 million to increase the capacity of the Office for Veterans Affairs, support veterans with injuries returning from their service, and increase the availability of veteran housing. But to be Europe's biggest defender of democracy, we must build Europe's most dynamic economy. That means tackling our long-standing productivity issues, including two in particular which I address today: lower business investment and higher economic inactivity than other countries. Too often, companies struggle to recruit, and even when they do, output per employee is lower. So today I set out the 4 pillars of our industrial strategy to address these issues. Colleagues will know from my Bloomberg speech, they all conveniently start with the letter E: enterprise, employment, education, and everywhere. I start, Madam Deputy Speaker, with everywhere. Our measures, well, they may not want to level up growth across the United Kingdom, but we do. This government was elected on a mandate to level up. We have already allocated nearly £4 billion in over 200 projects across the country through the first 2 rounds of the Levelling Up Fund. A third round will follow. Since we started focusing on levelling up, 70% of the growth in salaried jobs has come from outside London and the South East. And today we take further steps. Canary Wharf and the Liverpool Docks were 2 outstanding regeneration projects that happened under a previous Conservative government. I pay tribute to Lord Heseltine for making them happen because they transformed the lives of thousands of people. They showed what's possible when entrepreneurs, government and local communities come together. So today I announce that we will deliver 12 new investment zones, 12 potential Canary Wharfs. In England, we've identified the following areas as having the potential to host one: West Midlands, Greater Manchester, the North East, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, East Midlands, Teesside, and once again, Liverpool. There will also be at least one in each of Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. To be chosen, each area must identify a location where they can offer a bold and imaginative partnership between local government and a university or research institute in a way that catalyses new innovation clusters. If the application is successful, they'll have access to £80 million of support for a range of interventions, including skills, infrastructure, tax reliefs, and business rates retention. Working together with our formidable Levelling Up Secretary, I also want to give some further support to levelling up areas under the E of everywhere. First, I will invest over £200 million in high-quality local regeneration projects across England, including the regeneration of Tipton Town Centre and the Marsden New Mills redevelopment scheme. I'm also announcing a further £161 million for regeneration projects in mayoral combined authorities and the Greater London Authority, and I will make over £400 million available for new levelling up partnerships in areas that include Redcar and Cleveland, Blackburn, Oldham, Rochdale, Mansfield, South Tyneside and Bassetlaw. Having listened to the case for better local transport infrastructure from many honourable members, I can announce a second round of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements, allocating £8.8 billion over the next 5-year funding period. And following a wet, then cold winter, I have also received particularly strong representations from my honourable friends from North Devon, South West Devon and Newton Abbot as well as Councillor Peter Martin from my own constituency, about the curse of potholes. The spending review allocated £500 million every year to the Potholes Fund, but today I have decided to increase that fund by a further £200 million next year to help local communities tackle this problem. For Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, this budget delivers not only a new investment zone, but an additional £320 million for the Scottish Government, £180 million for the Welsh Government, and £130 million for the Northern Ireland Executive as a result of Barnett's consequentials. On top of which in Scotland I can announce up to £8.6 million of targeted funding for the Edinburgh Festivals, as well as £1.5 million funding to repair the Clodagh Bridge. I will provide £20 million of funding for the Welsh Government to restore the Holyhead Breakwater, and in Northern Ireland I'm allocating up to £3 million to extend the Tackling Paramilitarism programme and up to £40 million to extend further and higher education participation. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, for levelling up to truly succeed, we need to unleash the civic entrepreneurship that's only possible when elected local leaders are able to fund and deliver solutions to their own challenges. That means giving them responsibility for local economic growth and the benefit from the upside when it happens. So this government will consult on transferring responsibilities for local economic development from local enterprise partnerships to local authorities from April 24. I will also boost mayors' financial autonomy by agreeing multi-year single settlements for the West Midlands and Greater Combined Manchester Authority in the next spending review, something I intend to roll out for all mayoral areas over time. I've also agreed a new long-term commitment so that they can retain 100% of their business rates, something I also hope to expand to other areas. Investment zones, regeneration projects, levelling up partnerships, local transport infrastructure and business rates retention, more control for local communities over their economic destiny, so we will level up wealth and opportunity everywhere. Today's priority is the Prime Minister's promise to grow the economy. We've talked about making that growth happen everywhere, so I now move on to my second E, enterprise. We need to be, well, this has never been something of interest to the Labour Party, but for Conservatives, we won't rest until we are Europe's most dynamic enterprise economy. And under a Conservative government, that is exactly what's been happening. Since 2010, we have 1 million more businesses in the UK, a bigger increase than Germany, France or Italy. But I want another million and another million after that. So today I bring forward enterprise measures in these three areas to lower business taxes, reduce energy costs and support our growth industries. So let's start with business taxation. Conservatives know the importance of a competitive tax regime. We already have lower levels of business taxation than France, Germany, Italy or Japan. But I want us to have the most pro-business, pro-enterprise tax regime anywhere. Even after the corporation tax rise this April, we will have the lowest headline rate in the G7, lower than any period under the last Labour government. Only 10% of companies will pay the full 25% rate. But even at 19%, our corporation tax did not incentivise investment as effectively as countries with higher headline rates. The result is less capital investment and lower productivity than countries like France and Germany. We've already taken measures to address this. For larger business, we've had the super deduction, introduced by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, which ends this month. For smaller businesses, we've increased the annual investment allowance to £1 million, meaning 99% of all businesses can deduct the full value of all their investment from that year's taxable profits. If the super deduction was allowed to end without a replacement, we would have fallen down the international league tables on tax competitiveness and damaged growth. As a Conservative, I could not allow that to happen. So today I can announce we will introduce a new policy of full capital expensing for the next 3 years, with an intention to make it permanent as soon as we can responsibly do so. That means that every single pound a company invests in IT equipment, plant or machinery can be deducted in full and immediately from taxable profits. It is a corporation tax cut worth an average of £9 billion a year for every year that it's in place. And its impact on the economy will be huge. The OBR says it will increase in business investment by 3% for every year it's in place. This decision makes us the only major European country with full expensing and gives us the joint most generous capital allowance regime of any advanced economy. Madam Deputy Speaker, I understand the party opposite is reviewing business taxes. Let me save them the bother. They put them up, we cut them. I also want to make our taxes more competitive in our life science and creative industries sectors. In the autumn, I said I'd return with a more robust R&D tax credit scheme for smaller research-intensive companies. So today, I'm introducing an enhanced credit, which means that if a qualifying small or medium-sized business spends 40% or more of their total expenditure on R&D, they'll be able to claim a credit worth £27 for every £100 they spend. That means an eligible cancer drug company spending £2 million on research and development will receive over £500,000 to help them develop breakthrough treatments. It's a £1.8 billion package of support, helping 20,000 cutting-edge companies who day by day are turning Britain into a science superpower. And this government's audio-visual tax reliefs have helped make our film and TV industry the biggest in Europe. Only last month, Pinewood announced an expansion which will bring another 8,000 jobs to the UK. To give even more momentum to this critical sector, I'll introduce an expenditure credit with a rate of 34% for film, high-end television and video games, and 39% for the animation and children's TV sectors. I'll maintain the qualifying threshold for high-end television at £1 million. And because our theatres, orchestras and museums do such a brilliant job at attracting tourists to London and the UK, I'll extend for another 2 years their current 45% and 50% reliefs. Madam Deputy Speaker, an enterprise economy needs low taxes, but it also needs cheap and reliable energy. We have already announced billions of support to help businesses reduce their energy bills through the Energy Bills Relief Scheme and the Energy Bills Discount Scheme. We've appointed Dame Alison Rose, Chief Executive of NatWest, to co-chair our National Energy Efficiency Task Force and help deliver our national ambition to reduce energy use by 15%. And to support her efforts, I'll extend the Climate Change Agreement Scheme for 2 years to allow eligible businesses £600 million of tax relief on energy efficiency measures. But the long-term solution is not subsidy, but security. That means investing in domestic sources of energy that fall outside Putin or any autocrat's control. We are world leaders in renewable energy, so today I want to develop another plank of our green economy, carbon capture, usage and storage. I'm allocating up to £20 billion of support for the early development of CCUS, starting with projects from our East Coast to Merseyside to North Wales, paving the way for CCUS everywhere across the UK as we approach 2050. That will support up to 50,000 jobs, attract private sector investment, and help capture 20 to 30 million tonnes of CO2 per year by 2030. We have increased the proportion of electricity generated from renewables from under 10% when we came into office to nearly 40%. But because the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, even under the Conservatives, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will need another critical source of cheap and reliable energy, and that is nuclear. Now, there have been no more powerful advocates for this than the Honourable Member for Innismon, Copeland, Hartlepool and Workington. They rightly say that increasing nuclear capacity is vital to meet our net zero obligations. So to encourage private sector investment into our nuclear programme, I today confirm that, subject to consultation, nuclear power will be classed as environmentally sustainable in our green taxonomy. That will give it access to the same investment incentives as renewable energy. And alongside that will come more public investment. In the autumn statement, I announced the first state-financed investment in nuclear for a generation, a £700 million investment in Sizewell C. Today, I can announce two further commitments to deliver our nuclear ambitions. Firstly, following representations from our energetic Energy Security Secretary, I am announcing the launch of Great British Nuclear, which will bring down costs and provide opportunities across the nuclear supply chain to help provide 1/4 of our electricity by 2050. And secondly, it's so good to hear Labour in favour of nuclear energy. Just a shame they never did any. And secondly, I'm launching the first competition for small modular reactors. It will be completed by the end of this year, and if demonstrated as viable, we will co-fund this exciting new technology. Finally, under the E of enterprise, Madam Deputy Speaker, I come to our innovation economy, a central area of national competitive advantage for the United Kingdom. Over the weekend, I worked night and day with the Prime Minister and the Governor of Bank of England to protect the deposits of thousands of our most cutting-edge companies. We successfully secured the sale of the UK arm of Silicon Valley Bank to HSBC, so the future of those companies is now safe in the hands of Europe's biggest and one of its most creditworthy banks. But those events show that we need to build a larger, more diverse financing system where the benefits of investment in high-growth firms are available to more investors. So I will return in the autumn statement with a plan to deliver that. It will include measures to unlock productive investment from defined contribution pension funds and other sources, make the London Stock Exchange a more attractive place to list, and complete our response to the challenges created by the US Inflation Reduction Act. However, when it comes to our innovation industries, there are two areas I want to make progress on today. Nigel Lawson made the City of London one of the world's top financial centres by competitive deregulation. With our Brexit autonomy, we can do the same for our high-growth sectors. So today I want to reform the regulations around medicines and medical technologies. We are lucky with the MHRA to have one of the most respected drugs regulators in the world, indeed the very first anywhere to license a COVID vaccine. From 2024, they will move to a different model, which will allow rapid, often near automatic sign-off for medicines and technologies already approved by trusted regulators in other parts of the world, such as the United States, Europe and Japan. At the same time, they will set up a swift new approval process for the most cutting-edge medicines and devices to ensure the UK becomes a global centre for their development. And with an extra £10 million of funding over the next 2 years, they will put in place the quickest, simplest regulatory approval in the world for companies seeking rapid market access. We are proud of the life science sector, which received more inward investment than any in Europe last year. Today's change will make the UK an even more exciting place to invest, using our Brexit freedoms and speeding up access for NHS patients to the very newest drugs. Today, with our talented Science, Innovation and Technology Secretary, I also take measures to strengthen our position in artificial intelligence, where the UK hosts 1/3 of all European companies. I'm accepting all 9 of the digital technology recommendations made by Sir Patrick Vallance in the review I asked him to do in the autumn statement. That means I can report to the House that we will launch an AI sandbox to trial new, faster approaches to help innovators get cutting-edge products to market. We'll work at pace with the Intellectual Property Office to provide clarity on IP rules so that generative AI companies can access the material they need. And we'll ask Sir Patrick's successor, Dame Angela McLean, to report before the summer on options around the growth duty for regulators. Because AI needs computing horsepower, I today commit around £900 million of funding to implement the recommendations of the Independent Future of Compute review for an exascale computer. The power needed by AI's complex algorithms can also be provided by quantum computing. So today we'll publish a quantum strategy which will set out our vision to be a world-leading quantum-enabled economy by 2033 with a research and innovation programme totalling £2.5 billion. I also want to encourage the best AI research to happen in the UK, so we'll award a prize of £1 million every year for the next 10 years to the person or team that does the most groundbreaking British AI research. The world's first stored program computer was built at the University of Manchester in 1948 and was known as the Manchester Baby. 75 years on, the baby has grown up, so I will call this new National AI Award the Manchester Prize in its honour. Madam Deputy Speaker, we want the UK to be the best place in Europe for companies to locate, invest and grow. So today's enterprise measures strengthen our technology and life science sectors, invest in energy security, and for 3 years, but I hope permanently, cut corporation tax by £9 billion a year to give us the best investment incentives of any advanced economy. An enterprise economy can only grow if it can hire the people it needs. Which brings me to my third pillar, after everywhere and enterprise. I said it was a growth budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we are talking about the E of employment. I'm going to talk about a difficult topic for the party opposite now, because Brexit was a decision by the British people to change our economic model. In that historic vote, our country decided to move from a model based on unlimited low-skill migration to one based on high wages and high skills. Today, we show how we will deliver that with a major set of reforms. The OBR say it is the biggest positive supply-side intervention they have ever recognised in their forecast. We have around 1 million vacancies in the economy, but excluding students, there are over 7 million adults of working age who are not in work. That's a potential pool of 7 people for every vacancy. Conservatives believe work is a virtue. We agree with the road haulage king Eddie Stobart, who said the only place success comes before work is the dictionary. So today I bring forward reforms to remove the barriers that stop people who want to from working. And I start with over 2 million people who are inactive due to a disability or long-term sickness. Thanks to the reforms courageously introduced by the Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Woodford Green, the number of disabled people in work has risen by 2 million since 2013. But even after that, we could fill half the vacancies in the economy with people who say they would like to work despite being inactive due to sickness or disability. With Zoom, Teams and new working models that make it easier to work from home, this is possible now more than ever. So for that reason, the ever-diligent Work and Pensions Secretary today takes the next step in his groundbreaking work on tackling economic inactivity. I thank him for that, And today we publish a white paper on disability benefits reform. It is the biggest change to our welfare system in a decade. His plans will abolish the work capability assessment in Great Britain and separate benefit entitlement from an individual's ability to work. As a result, disabled benefit claimants will always be able to seek work without fear of losing financial support. Today, I'm going further by announcing that in England and Wales, after listening to representations from the Centre for Social Justice and others, we will fund a new programme called Universal Support. This is a new voluntary employment scheme for disabled people, where the government will spend up to £4,000 a person to help them find appropriate jobs and put in place the support they need. It will fund 50,000 places every single year. We also want to help those who are forced to leave work because of a health condition such as a back pain or a mental health issue. We should give them support before they end up leaving their job. So working with our Health Secretary, I'm announcing a £400 million plan to increase the availability of mental health and musculoskeletal resources and expand the individual placement and support scheme. And because occupational health provided by employers has a key role to play, I'll also bring forward 2 new consultations on how to improve its availability and double the funding for the small company subsidy pilot. There's another group that deserve particular attention, which is children in care. They too should be given all possible help to make a normal working life possible when they reach adulthood. Often they depend on foster families who do a brilliant job. So today I'm nearly doubling the qualifying care relief threshold to £18,140, which will give a tax cut to a qualifying carer worth an average of £450 a year. I'll also increase the funding we provide to the Staying Close programme by 50% to help more care leavers into employment, and I'll support young people with special educational needs and disabilities with a £3 million pilot expansion of the Department for Education's supported internship programme to help those people transition from education into the workplace. Madam Deputy Speaker, no civilised society can ignore the contribution that can be made by those with challenging family circumstances, a long-term illness or a disability. So today we remove the barriers we can with reforms that strengthen our society as well as strengthening our economy. The next set of employment reforms affects those on universal credit without a health condition who are looking for work or on low earnings. There are more than 2 million job seekers in this group, more than enough to fill every vacancy in the economy. Independence is always better than dependence, which is why a Conservative government believes with some exceptions, Madam Deputy Speaker. Independence is always better than dependence, which is why a Conservative government believes those who can work should. So sanctions will be applied more rigorously to those who fail to meet strict work search requirements or choose not to take up a reasonable job offer. And for those working low hours, we will increase the administrative earnings threshold from the equivalent of 15 hours to 18 hours at national living wage for an individual claimant, meaning that anyone working below this level will receive more work coach support alongside a more intensive conditionality regime. The next group of workers I want to support are those aged over 50. My younger officials have termed these people older workers, although as a 56-year-old myself, I prefer the term experienced. Fully 3.5 million people of pre-retirement age over 50 are not part of the labour force, an increase of 320,000 since before the pandemic. We now have the 23rd highest inactivity rate for over 55s in the OECD. If we match the rate of Sweden, we would add more than 1 million people to our national labour force. Madam Deputy Speaker, I say this not to flatter you, but older people are the most skilled and experienced people we have. country can thrive. No country can thrive if it turns its back on such a wealth of talent and ability. But for too many, turning 50 is a moment of anxiety about the cliff edge of retirement, rather than a moment of anticipation about another 2 decades of fulfilment. I know this, Madam Deputy Speaker, myself. After I turned 50, I was relegated to the backbenches and planned for a quiet life, but instead I decided to set an example by embarking on a new career in finance. So today I take 3 steps to make it easier for those who wish to. It's going well, thank you. And today I take 3 steps to make it easier for those who wish to work longer. First, we will increase the number of people who get the best possible financial, health and career guidance ahead of retirement by enhancing the DWP's excellent midlife MOT strategy. They will also increase by 5-fold the number of 50-plus universal credits who receive midlife MOTs from 8,000 to 40,000 a year. Second, with my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, who has a deep personal commitment to this area, will introduce a new kind of apprenticeship targeted at the over 50s who want to return to work. They will be called returnerships and operate alongside skills boot camps and sector-based work academies. They'll bring together our existing skills programmes to make them more appealing for older workers, focusing on flexibility and previous experience to reduce training length. Finally, I have listened to the concerns of many senior NHS clinicians who say unpredictable pension tax charges are making them leave the NHS just when they are needed the most. The NHS is our biggest employer, and we will shortly publish a long-term workforce plan that I promised in the autumn statement. But ahead of that, I don't want any doctor to retire early because of the way pension taxes work. It's an issue I've discussed not just with the current Health Secretary, but a former Health Secretary who kindly took a break from WhatsApping his colleagues to consider it. As Chancellor, I have realised the issue goes wider than doctors. No one should be pushed out of the workforce for tax reasons. So today I will increase the pension's annual tax-free allowance by 50%, from 40,000 to 60,000. Some have also asked me to increase the lifetime allowance from its £1 million limit. But I've decided not to do that. Instead, I will go further and abolish the lifetime allowance altogether. It is a pension tax reform that will stop over 80% of NHS doctors from receiving a tax charge, incentivise our most experienced and productive workers to stay in work for longer, and simplify our tax system, taking thousands of people out of the complexity.
Order. Just because the Chancellor of the Exchequer is either unpopular or popular, we still have to keep the noise down because we still have to hear what he has to say. He has more to say. Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a comprehensive plan to remove the barriers to work facing those on benefits, those with health conditions and older workers. That is the E of the employment pillar of today's growth budget, which brings me to the final pillar of our growth plan. After employment, enterprise and everywhere, I turn to the E of education. Over more than a decade, this Conservative government has driven improvement in our education system. We've risen by nearly 10 places in the international league tables for English and maths since 2015 alone. In the autumn statement, I built on this programme with an extra £2.3 billion annual investment to our schools. We're reviewing our approach to skills with Sir Michael Barber. We set out our plans to transform lifelong learning with a new lifelong loan entitlement. And my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, announced plans to make maths compulsory till 18. But today I want to address an issue in our education system that is bad for children and damaging for the economy. It's an issue that starts even before a child enters the gates of a school, Today I want to reform our childcare system. We have one of the most expensive systems in the world. Almost half of non-working mothers say they would prefer to work if they could arrange suitable childcare. For many women, a career break becomes a career end. Our female participation rate is higher than average for OECD economies, but we trail top performers like Denmark and the Netherlands. If we match Dutch levels of participation, there would be more than 1 million additional women working. And we can do that. So today I announce a series of reforms that start that journey. I begin with the supply of childcare. We've seen a significant decline in childminders over recent years, down 9% in England in just 1 year. But childminders are a vital way to deliver affordable and flexible care, and we need more of them. So I've listened to representations from my honourable friend from Stroud, and decided to address this by piloting incentive payments of £600 for childminders who sign up to the profession, rising to £1,200 for those who join through an agency. I've also heard many concerns about cost pressures facing the sector. We know this is making it hard to hire staff and raising prices for parents, with around 2/3 of childcare providers increasing fees last year alone. So we'll increase the funding paid to nurseries providing free childcare under the Hours offer by £204 million from this September, rising to £288 million next year. That's an average of a 30% increase in the 2-year-old rate this year, just as the sector has requested. I will also offer providers more flexibility in how they operate, in line with other parts of the UK. So alongside that additional funding, we will change minimum staff-to-child ratios from 1:4 to 1:5 for 2-year-olds in England, as happens in Scotland, although the new ratios will remain optional, with no obligation on either childminders or parents to adopt them. I want to help the 700,000 parents on universal credit, who until the reforms I announced today had limited requirements to look for work. Many remain out of work because they cannot afford the upfront payment necessary to access subsidised childcare. So for any parents who are moving into work or want to increase their hours, we will pay the childcare costs up front. And we will increase the maximum they can claim to £951 for one child and £1,630 for 2 children, an increase of almost 50%. I turn now to parents of school-age children, who often face barriers to working because of the limited availability of wraparound care. 1/3 of primary schools do not offer childcare at both ends of the school day, even though for many people a job requires it to be available before and after school. To address this, we'll fund schools and local authorities to increase the supply of wraparound care so all school-age parents can drop their children off between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And our ambition is that all schools will start to offer a full wraparound offer, either on their own or in partnership with other schools, by September 2026. Madam Deputy Speaker, today's childcare reforms will increase the availability of childcare, reduce costs and increase the number of parents able to use it. Taken together with earlier Conservative reforms, they amount to the most significant improvements to childcare provision in a decade. But if we really want to remove the barriers to work, we need to go further for parents who have a child under 3. For them, childcare remains just too expensive. In 2010, there was barely any free childcare for under 5s. A Conservative-led government changed that with free childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds in England. It was a landmark reform, but not a complete one. I don't want any parent with a child under 5 to be prevented from working if they want to, because it's damaging to our economy and unfair mainly to women. So today I announce that in eligible households where all adults are working at least 16 hours, we will introduce 30 hours of free childcare, not just for 3- and 4-year-olds, but for every single child over the age of 9 months. The 30-hour offer will now start from the moment maternity or paternity leave ends. It's a package worth, on average, £6,500 every year for a family with a 2-year-old child using 35 hours of childcare every week, and reduces their childcare costs by nearly 60%. Because it is such a large reform, we will introduce it in stages to ensure there is enough supply in the market. Working parents of 2-year-olds will be able to access 15 hours of free care from April 2024, helping around 500,000 parents. From September 24, that 15 hours will be extended to all children from 9 months up, meaning a total of nearly 1 million parents will be eligible. And from September 25, every single working parent of under 5s will have access to 30 hours free childcare per week. Madam Deputy Speaker.
Order. Mr. Perkins, stop it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, today we complete a landmark Conservative reform. We help the economy, transform the lives of thousands of women, and build a childcare system comparable to the best. A major early years reform for our education system, the E of education, alongside the 3 other pillars of our growth plan: enterprise, employment, and everywhere. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, in November we delivered stability. Today it's growth. We tackle the 2 biggest barriers that stop businesses growing: investment incentives and labour supply. The best investment incentives in Europe, the biggest ever employment package